power on.
And now for another fast-breaking news story, we go to our roving reporter,
the podcast, Sovryn Tech. Its host, Dr. Brian Sovryn. The tech giants tried to stop Sovryn Tech. They can't.
Woo! You know, I get the emails and I get the tweets. Well, actually, I don't get the tweets anymore, but we might talk about that. But they always ask me, they say, Stallion, what makes you go round and round, baby? And, well, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, Dr. Brian Sovryn, is here to discuss just that by request. But not just that, it won't just be me, because I was like, well, this is, okay, I care about my health a lot, but there are aspects of it that I've always had a hard time, like, really doing the due diligence and concentrating on. And I've always been lucky enough to have people in my life who kind of take care of that other side of things. And so I said, you know what? It's like, why not my partner in crime, my partner at the gym, my partner in life, my partner in love, my partner on Sovryn Tech. Why don't I have her on?
Woo!
Woo! Yes.
Too
to talk,
sweet.
Yeah. Whoa, baby. Fitting that I'm wearing an NWO shirt right now anyway. And, but, yeah, of course, Ellen Sovryn joining me here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, you were excited to talk about this. I had gotten a lot of emails lately, and I think for obvious reasons, due to the climate and I mean more the social, and I guess health climate in 2020. I had a lot of people asking me, hey, Brian, what's your stack? What are you doing as far as working out? And actually for years I did I would do a yearly update of, okay, this is what my workout looks like, and this is what I'm experimenting with, and so on. And I would talk about diet and a lot of these other things. And really, I mean, the working out wouldn't shift so much. Like, there wouldn't be so many dramatic changes there, but I definitely experiment a lot with supplements, and my diet would often shift a bit. Like, I would constantly try new things.
So that's the blind spot that you have other people help you out with, right?
Yeah. I mean, the supplements, I'm kind of, N of one-ing myself with that. And we'll get into this because, I can do it. In fact, I jokingly said, all right, Ellen, when we do this episode, we'll call it the Supplemental. And that's really exactly what this is. With the supplements, this is something that, well, I mean, you've helped out a lot on, but the area where you've certainly had my back on and that I'm really trusting you on. And I feel like it's delivered. Even just recently, we're trying some new things. I mean, you've got this on lock, Ellen, and you've really convinced me. And I mean, my diet has changed dramatically from the last time that I would have done one of these episodes, which probably would have been 2018. And again, we're in 2021. So we're due for an update, no doubt about that. But you are really, I mean, well, you introduced me to Dr. Michael Greger's work with How Not to Die, How Not to Diet, and so on. I recommend those books heartily. They'll put you on a pretty good path.
Yeah, they're so powerful.
Right.
I love sharing that book with anybody who'll listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into some books because you've been reading some interesting things. In fact, the books you are reading, I think, and this is important to bring up, the books you were reading are a lot more on mental health, I would say.
The ones I've been reading recently.
Yeah. But as I often say on Sovryn Tech, really, we should never separate. I mean, I guess for precision, we'll separate it a bit in this episode, but really mind and body, mental and physical, are not separate things at all. There should be a dash in between mind, body. And that's a concept, that's common within general semantics, which I am also a big fan of, and something else people could look into as far as, mental health. But regardless, it's much more than that too. But it really should,
I might even argue in this episode that there's an additional dimension to health. It's not just mind body, but there's something else.
There's something else. I can't wait to find out what the something else is. I'm going to take a note here. We got to bring up what the something else is. So, but, well, anyway, I think this is going to be a great episode. We've got a lot to get into, a lot to talk about. There are some stories we're going to get into. We are going to talk about what is Ellen's stack as far as supplements? What is my stack as far as supplements? And those are two different things. And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. We will discuss, again, some dynamite stories that we need to discuss, especially because right now there's a lot of controversy going on in the health space that I think we need to address and that I've had thoughts on, and we've had a lot of conversations on over breakfast.
Yeah, fortunately not behind the microphone.
That's a good point. But we'll bring it up. And then we will also talk about our workout routine, which is actually not too dissimilar in what we do, but we'll get into that. And we have a kind of a new, I don't want to call it a new diet, but certainly a new schedule for eating. That I think we need to discuss. So there's a lot of things to get into here, a lot of things to cover.
So this episode's all about health, just overall well-being, general health.
Yeah, pretty much every part of you, including what I want to open up with is, and this is really digital hygiene. Now I want to bring this up because, stress is a key thing to mitigate as far as overall health goes. And online right now, in January 2021, life online is a fucking shitstorm. So
yeah.
Now you, actually, some congratulations are in order.
Are they?
Yeah, because you are a full-on graduated, documented, you're a full-on scientist, engineer, the whole thing. You graduated.
Yes,
Woo!
I did.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Yes, I'm so excited and relieved.
Yeah. I mean, so you're going to be entering, you're going to be doing some really important shit.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out what it is.
Yeah, no, I know the job search has been on for sure. But yeah, this is going to be, well, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm excited to have all of this free time. I mean, I cannot stress enough how much I spent every waking hour from morning till night working while I was still a student. And as soon as classes were over, as soon as finals were over, that was done. And I finally had time to address this list of projects that have been building up for practically years.
Right.
But one of the first things on that list was clean up your Facebook. I wanted to just rip all the data from it and get rid of it.
Yeah. And
I've been wanting to do this for a long time because it's just been sitting there and I don't use it. And it's better to not have one than to have one that's really behind the times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad I did it when I did, because this was about a week before, well, all the censorship that's been happening recently.
Yeah. So we're both completely social media-less. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you got rid of your Twitter and your Facebook as well.
Well,
right?
Yeah, so my Facebook's gone. I hadn't posted on Facebook in forever. And I mean, years and years and years. Instagram, same deal. It had been 3-4 years since I ever posted on Instagram. I just kind of left it there because there's an argument to be had that, well, if you're not on there, someone could pretend to be you. And not that I am, I'm a Z-list celebrity, I don't even think that term applies to me.
But who could even pretend to be you? Nobody has your spirit.
Well, that's true. I think you can pretty well tell when it's me and it's not.
Yeah.
Because fortunately, the way that I post on social media sounds exactly like the way I talk. And I know sounds is a funny word to use, but no, really, everybody always tells me how they just hear my voice when they would read what I said on social media. But yeah, and I had, let's just say that Twitter's recent policies affected me. And so, my Twitter account no longer exists. So yeah, I am completely social media-less. I still have the Telegram group. If you want to count that as social media, okay. But there's the Sovryn Tech Telegram group.
There's also the Element group. Are you going to talk about that?
So I do have that. And technically, I guess that could be called social media. And certainly LRN, which is operating their own servers now, which I talked about this in a recent episode, that is something that's available. And if you go back a couple episodes, the links for all of that are in the show notes. I suppose I should put those links in the show notes proper from now on, because I can't put my Twitter account there anymore.
Yeah, and we don't know how much longer Telegram's even going to be in app stores in America.
Yeah, this is a concern. And well, anyway, that's a bigger conversation to get into, but absolutely. So this is one part of digital hygiene that has certainly been cleaned up, is that, no more social media. But again, I am on that Element group on LRN, which can kind of be called social media. It's Element or Matrix, technically. It's its own Matrix server that LRN's running, which I think is fantastic. Free Talk Live is a Sovryn Tech sponsor, by the way. They did re-up for 2021, which I appreciate them showing confidence in this show. And, but that, it operates much like IRC Matrix does. It's like the new form of IRC. And I don't know if I would necessarily call that social media, but it can certainly be branded as such. So I guess I do have that. I'm not 100% social media-less, but I am certainly 100% social media-less from anybody like Gab or any of the, even any of the alts that you think of.
All these big corporations.
Yeah, whoever. I mean, I'm just not a part of the program here, and it's not for you either. And I'll tell you personally, not being on Twitter, wow, a lot of mind space freed up, tons.
That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing, because even me, like, I think that, okay, well, if I'm going to have people engage with me on Twitter, I've got to tweet, I've got to put something out there. And a couple things happen there, though, is that you have to like put effort into trying to, okay, what should I tweet out there that means anything, and that can be its own little stress. Even though you could argue it's kind of effortlessly for me, but I don't see the return on that. And I could get into an argument where I don't see Sovryn Tech's audience growing any further. And so social media without like any kind of real plan for that or putting money into it, which I will do neither, just doesn't make sense. But there's that, there's certainly that aspect of it. There's other parts of not having social media. I mean, one has to be careful with this line of thinking, but I really kind of like it. And that is, before you open your mouth, is it going to improve upon the silence? And I think I think this episode is going to be very helpful for people, give them something to think about, or to try. But, otherwise, like, no, I don't know if just my little ramblings and whatever online, improve upon any of the silence. I think the silence does just fine on its own, and we could use a lot more silence in our lives.
Well, you're not going to find silence on Twitter. I think that's the worst place to go looking for it.
It's a goddamn fire hose. No, yeah, absolutely not. So anyway, it's been an improvement. Not being on social media at all is an incredible relief. And I feel, and I never even feel the tinge or twitch to, I should get back on there. I wish I could tweet this out or blah, blah, blah.
So there's no fear of missing out. There's no thinking like, I have such a fun idea that I could post online right now, but I can't because I don't have the account anymore.
None. And you know what? Because, and I've said this in recent episodes. Like social media it's a fucking MMO. That's not real. There's nothing real there. Like it's you have different versions of reality. I mean, it's literally like World of Warcraft. You have, the Alliance and the Horde, you have like these two different fucking worldviews. And well, no matter, whatever you think you belong to, you either buy into this one or you buy into the other. And you just run with it because, yep, this is the group that I belong to. And it's all a package deal. And the sad part is that these are manufactured reality bubbles by a lot of news organizations. Okay. And it's not even what you really think. you're just buying into this idea that, well, I need to belong to X, or this is the closest to me, or, I'm looking for allies or whatever. And so it's not real. It's not it's not objective reality. It's not even close to the real world. And so, like, I would argue if you spend substantial amounts of time on those platforms, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice, and you're literally, like, you're fooling yourself, because there's better words I want to use for this. But bottom line being is that you are getting a completely skewed version of reality. And I think it's gotten to the point, I don't even think that even if you look at it critically, even that's not good enough, because it's still going to affect you. Because what you think is, you think that there are people out there who believe this stuff and kind of act upon it or whatever. No, I'm basically of the opinion that people on social media, like the people that are really on social media and doing whatever, they're either AstroTurf and they're bought by the politician, or, it's like Bangladeshi specials. Like, they're sock accounts. They're not even real people. Or it's people who are, and hey, if you want to live this way, okay, fine, but you're not, like, actively necessarily in the real world. Or it's people that are just, like, sitting on their asses and not productively, 25 hours a day. And I said 25.
Yeah, how can you be productive when you're tweeting that much?
It's impossible. And it's not the real world. And I'm sure the politicians just fucking love it, because now they don't have to deal with the phone calls. They don't have to deal with letters. They don't have to deal with mobs, usually. They don't have to deal with all kinds of things. And the narrative is so controlled on these platforms. It's ridiculous. You will get no semblance, no sense of reality by being on those platforms. And anybody reacting to tweets or to social media posts in general, don't live in the real world. There it is. Bottom line.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing is that I think social media platforms are where people go to feel like they get a moment in the spotlight. But also, it kind of fulfills their need for connection with other people. Sure.
And I get it that in a pandemic, like, that can be tough for some based upon the regulations that exist.
But it's not the best way to connect. It might even be a toxic way.
Yes, it's piss poor. And it becomes a question of, okay, well, at least I can connect this way. But when does it become a net negative? Like, when does it actually become more harmful to connect in this way than to just not? And no one wants to go there, frankly, I think that if social media didn't exist and a lot of these other platforms didn't exist, these lockdowns and everything, no one would put up with them for a second.
No, people would start paying more attention to what's going on in their head.
Yeah.
And their heart, as opposed to what the narrative is.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't put up with it, but they feel like they're playing this. It's a video game. Again, it's an MMO, and they think that they're, like, on some team, and they just go forward. Anyway, so life's great without social media. You don't need it.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing?
Please.
So I haven't posted on social media for many years because of everything that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason that I wanted to get rid of my social media account, which I finally did after getting all of my pictures and whatnot off of there,
mm-hmm.
So my Facebook account was hacked once, and I was like posting an advertisement for sunglasses or something.
Right.
And it was really stupid, but it scared me. I was, shaken by this experience.
Yeah.
So of course I upped the complexity of my password, but I just wanted to get rid of these accounts because I don't want another thing out there that somebody can hack into.
Yeah, exactly.
And take my password and possibly do other damage to my accounts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel relief just in not having those exist.
Yeah. And in fact, I was talking to somebody who's actually the head of a pretty large company in Canada. And he said, if you're not getting banned off of social media, clearly you're not saying anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Like anything that matters, and this is a guy, liberal as fuck. I mean, he's not, a Trumper or anything like, along those lines, liberal as fuck. And he said, if you're not getting banned off of social media, you're doing something wrong.
You're not saying anything that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he's totally right on about that. So
he has a point.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so social media, that's a great thing to get rid of. You don't need it. Nope. You don't need it. And if you need it, say for some kind of business that you're doing or something along those lines, I guess I can kind of understand that, but for fuck's sake, just make it a bullshit account and just be silent.
Yeah. There are much better ways to communicate directly with the people that you need to.
Yeah.
And you don't even need social media for that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, I will say this, I kind of want to go down this road, but I don't. Yeah. All right. We're fuck it. We're not going there. I was going to say about Telegram. So as I've been using Telegram more, all right, let's do it. So as I've been using Telegram more, I've been in groups where there are close to 1,000 people in them. You can't follow the conversations on there.
No.
It's a fucking mess. The Sovryn Tech group has under 100 people on it. And I think even that for people is a challenge to keep track of, even that, as helpful as I know it is for some people, man, Dunbar's number is a real fucking thing. And any time that we don't pay attention to that, the results may not necessarily be disastrous, but I do think that they become net negatives.
I agree.
Yeah. And I see that even with platforms that I like, and I like Telegram overall. That's how it is. So anyway, there's all that with social media. If you want to get rid of a lot of stress, man, just get the fuck off of there, and let it go.
Yeah. Same thing with news. I mean, you can reduce your stress a lot by just not watching the news.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a fucking laugh.
Yeah. And honestly, now that Trump's not in office, I think there's going to be less viewership for news because a lot of people were watching it on a daily basis just to see, oh, what has this guy done today?
Yeah. What dumb shit did he do today? And there's plenty for him to do. I mean, don't worry, folks. Every politician is doing asinine nonsense, every day. So, there's still plenty to look for, but anyway, I guess their skin isn't orange. So, but digital hygiene, let's keep talking about this a little bit because you have, now that you've graduated, you have started going down a path of where you're really cleaning up a lot of this stuff because you don't need it necessarily for what you were engaging in with school. And one thing that we really started on, and people can go actually to the previous Sovryn Tech Supplemental, which is 01/2021 from just a couple weeks ago. And there I talk about getting off of Firefox and saying that, wow, Mozilla is calling for rampant algorithmic censorship. And
yikes.
Yeah,
that was terrifying
when
they said that. We need more than deplatforming.
Exactly. I mean, incredibly extreme position for them to hold and just dead wrong and not how, and this is the company that, again, for decades or a decade or more has been talking about, we need an open internet, we need this and blah. And I'm like, yeah. Great philosophy and everything. And they did a complete 180, insane. And of course we talked about this earlier in the year when it really happened. But, so, I've been personally kind of been on the search. Okay. What do I recommend to people, going forward? Now I'm still looking into this a little bit more and I'm going to do an entire episode about this. But the first thing that we basically set up for you is let's get you on Brave browser.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the other, but yeah, you're right. I did get on Brave browser.
Yeah. Which other? What other?
LastPass.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay, because we set that up first. But anyway, the Brave browser, I really like it so far. I know there are more security-based reasons for why you like it.
Yeah.
But just from my perspective, not being a tech journalist, I really enjoy using it. It's so simple. Most things are intuitive. And it just has all of these settings that you can go through and really customize your browser.
Sure.
So I'm really appreciating the experience.
Yeah. I mean, basically, we just had to get off of Firefox. Now, again, folks, before you bring up any critiques around Brave or around monoculture, oh shit, we're all on the Chromium engine and everything. Go back and listen to 01 2021. I address all of that. And in the upcoming Brave special that I'm going to do, I will address all of these concerns, because I agree. I don't want a monoculture at all. As far as web rendering engines, I'm just not interested in that. But we'll explore it further in the future. But I mean, moving to Brave, and I want to talk about some of the ease of that. But I mean, that was pretty simple, right?
Oh, it was totally simple. All I had to do was install the Brave browser, and then I basically just transferred all of my bookmarks over, and that was it.
Yeah. So before we did this, before we took you to Brave, we set you up with LastPass. Now, LastPass is a great move to do because it allows you to have all those passwords and everything. And basically, you can have, if you're already on Firefox, you can have LastPass extension installed, right? You can get everything off of Firefox into LastPass. And then just when you install Brave, you install the LastPass extension and everything's right there for you, and you don't even have to deal with that. Like re-entering your passwords and everything else, like, from Firefox.
Yeah. And LastPass is such a brilliant thing. I wish I had done this years ago. And if you don't have LastPass now, do it, because I think it was like the best decision that I have made as far as my passwords go. Yeah. Ever.
Yeah, and it's free. It's free.
Yes, it's totally free. You have the account, so you can use it on any browser, even on your phone, which I like that too. It was a little tricky setting it up initially. Like, I had to spend some time really understanding this process.
A little bit of a learning curve, yes.
Yeah. It's not too complicated, but it does take some time to get used to. Because it doesn't always work perfectly. As far as, like, if you have a saved password, it's not going to immediately paste it. You have to, like, go into your vault and copy and paste.
Right.
But I've been using it so much, especially for generating secure passwords. I really love that functionality. Yeah, it's so easy. You just tell it how long you want the password to be, and then how complex it needs to be, and it will generate it for you. It'll automatically save it, so you don't have to remember any passwords except for your master. Right. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the experience of LastPass too.
Yeah. So this is where we started, like in the cleanup, like closing accounts. You're getting everything in a LastPass, all the passwords, generating, maybe making new passwords with it. Because it does have a lot of tools. LastPass really does.
I've been going through all of the passwords and accounts that are saved to the Brave browser that I transferred over from the other browser that I was using. And I've just been clicking on each account and changing my password. Right. Because I know, personally, I have reused the same password with like minor variations.
Sure.
For each account, but it's basically the same password, and that's not a good technique if you want to be secure online.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's the right move. And when you're going through LastPass, the beauty of it is it's a great time to reassess, okay, what accounts do I have? And how many of those could get closed? Which is, really important. And ultimately, we're looking at getting you to Linux. Like that's where this is all going to basically end.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal.
Right. And I mean, there's certainly some challenges I could imagine around that. Because, well, not really. I mean, the thing is that there's some games I know you love playing that it's not going to happen on Linux.
Are you talking about Age of Mythology?
Yeah, like Age of Mythology.
Age of Empires?
We could run VMs. I mean, there's ways of doing it, but it's certainly a very different situation. But yeah, this is all about, again, that digital hygiene. And another thing that we're looking at, and I'm going to do a special on this, is upping your email game, as it were. Yeah,
this one is, we almost did it, but you told me that there might be other options.
Yeah, we were going to set you up with Proton Mail. Ultimately, we might still do that. It's really a great option, especially for, I mean, because as we say when you're on, I mean, you're not like, you're not a tech guru or necessarily even a tech enthusiast. I mean, you're an engineer, and
Different kind of technology.
Yeah, different. Right. But for a lot of consumer technology, you're not exactly a tech enthusiast, and so, but again, what I've always given you so much credit for is that you implement all these things that I've been talking about for years. And I mean, you were implementing them before we were even like, great friends and then eventually lovers. Right. And
yeah, well, I know that you have done the research,
right,
and I'm open to learning from you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I've noticed like a lot of people are finally really paying attention and saying, wow, no, I need to implement this stuff now because of the events that have happened just in the past few weeks.
Yeah. I've actually seen a number of my friends transfer over to Signal as a messaging application.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing how many people have, I mean, the notifications I get for people who join Telegram and Signal, and I almost want to like make a list of people as like, lazy fucker. No.
We've already moved on from Signal.
Well, true, but it's just like, yeah, exactly.
We used it for years, literally years,
yeah,
and then decided there was something better and moved away. And
exactly.
Now people are just coming to Signal.
Right. It's just so funny, But I mean, hey, if people are starting to take it seriously, ultimately it's a win for everyone, because
definitely.
The more secure we all are, the more secure we all are. You understand? And so I think this is, the email thing. I will be doing an email special that's going to cover as many bases as possible of how to set up an email. That is going to give you, depending upon your angle, anonymity, encryption, so on, whatever you're looking for. We'll break that down. So we'll get into that, and then maybe we'll find out what Ellen decided to use at that point. But in any case, so those are, the simple steps of, kind of working on that digital hygiene. And when you have all that and you're feeling more secure, your data's encrypted, you have control of your actual fucking data. That's certainly going to drop some stress levels.
It makes me feel more confident about being online.
Yeah, exactly. So with that said, I think we can kind of move on from that, and let's get into kind of talking about that mental health, like we were saying at the top. And whenever you're on, we have a little tradition going now where we end up talking about the books that we're reading. While one of these books I have started to read, I've just started and I want to read it because you were so gaga about this thing. And that is The Happiness Hypothesis, right?
That's right. I actually listened to this book twice because it was so information dense that I couldn't absorb it all the first time.
That's how much you like this book.
Yes.
You've read it twice.
I think it's a very important book.
That's amazing. Yeah. So full title, let me give it, is Happiness Hypothesis, Finding Modern Truth and Ancient Wisdom by Jonathan Haidt. And it's from 2006. Now, he's perhaps even better known for his book, The Righteous Mind, which I read some years ago. I'll admit I was not as impressed with that book, but everything you've told me about the Happiness Hypothesis, I'm like, wow, this guy might be really on. I kind of wish a lot of people that read The Righteous Mind read The Happiness Hypothesis based upon what you have told me about it. We're going to get into it because I feel like The Righteous Mind is one of those books that gets used by people that give a shit about electoral politics to justify whatever nonsensical position they happen to have. And I think that if they read The Happiness Hypothesis, they would see, wow, this guy isn't exactly as basically what you've told me about this book is, he sounds like a Stirner or a Nietzsche, where there's no such thing as morality, or he sounds like a Sovryn saying that, morality doesn't exist. Because again, it cannot be overstated how much like conservatives use the book, The Righteous Mind, to justify their horseshit. And, as to where this guy is not your ally, this guy is telling you, well, let's break it down,
Sure.
Yeah, let's get into it. So give me a little bit about this book. Tell me about the elephant.
Okay. So this book starts off basically talking about the structure of the brain and what it does, how it evolved, and
He's a psychologist, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So he really goes into the biology of how our brains function.
Mhm.
And he kind of talks about how the layers were built up over, a series of evolutionary stages.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to this book for him to use the metaphor of the elephant and the rider. And he makes the great point that people often think of their brains as if they were driving a car. They push the gas pedal, it goes faster, they turn right and they go right. They step on the brakes and they slow down. But it's not actually that way. Because the brain is not... Your actions, your reactions are not directly correlated to what you command yourself to do.
Mhm.
It's more similar to you being atop this mighty beast that has its own passions and its own desires. And that's why he says it's like being on top of a horse or a bull or an elephant. Because sometimes you can tell the animal, turn right, and it might not turn right at all.
Yeah. Or it might do so slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it might run the opposite direction because it sees food.
Yeah. So his example that he uses a lot throughout the book is this elephant and the rider, and that's
Right.
like kind of the two parts of your brain.
Yes. Yeah. Because the rider is supposed to represent your conscious mind,
Mhm.
the part of you that thinks in words and makes decisions and is like actively looking around and trying to enact itself on its surroundings.
Mhm.
But the elephant is the subconscious mind, which is obviously much more powerful.
Yes.
Even according to Freud's estimations, it's like the iceberg, 3% of your brain is your conscious mind.
Right.
And the other 97%, which you can't see because it's below the water level, that's your subconscious.
Yeah.
So it's much more powerful. And your subconscious mind has its own desires and motivations and passions that you can't directly control.
Mhm.
Your conscious mind, you can't just tell yourself one day that you're going to make a change in your life and then expect it to stick. I mean, this is why New Year's resolutions often fizzle out within a couple weeks.
Right.
Because you haven't properly trained your elephant.
Well, an example. So in what little I've read of the book so far, I thought was really an interesting point that he brings up, and that has to do with like the elephant and the rider. And that is that before the automobile, we, to get somewhere, we were always relying upon, a beast, or often enough, unless we walked, I guess. But we were relying upon a beast that had a mind of its own. And so there was this unconscious understanding of, that, okay, my will wants to go to San Francisco, but my oxen or horse may not.
So you have to cajole it to get there.
Right. But there is a natural empathy and understanding of how life really works that we have lost because everything has become so directly controlled and maybe mechanized. It creates systems thinking, but the universe doesn't work on systems. Not really. Like the universe works on chaos. And constantly adapting to the new chaos, and so I think it's brilliant that he keeps bringing up, the rider and the beast or the rider and the elephant, because it is an important way to look at things. That I thought was really, really interesting for him to bring up is that we cannot understand, and we can't even really empathize with the, shall we say, case by case nature of nature and of interactions because we think, no, everything's fucking rigid and logical and it works this way because when I turn the steering wheel right, the car turns right. When if you had an idea of, no, well, when I whip the horse, shit, it might just go straight. you know, and you know, I don't have that kind of control over things. It's a beautiful point, but anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So basically he goes back to the ancient wisdom, by talking about different authors, different famous people throughout history, and kind of putting on display how his hypothesis represents what they've been saying. So this is one of his big ideas, is that you know, there is this elephant that exists, and the rider doesn't always control it. And essentially he'll come up with sayings that represent these big ideas.
Sure.
And for that chapter, what he said was that there were famous people throughout history that had said similar things, like, I saw the right direction and my mind approved it, but I still went the other direction. You know, it's like people who decide to go on a diet, but they can't help themselves if dessert is placed before them.
Right.
They're still going to eat it.
Right.
And he basically says that there are 3 ways that you can train your elephant or train your subconscious to be more malleable and more compliant with what your conscious mind wants to do. So you can basically meditate, which is totally natural, has lots of health benefits besides retraining your subconscious.
Yeah.
It just overall improves your health and well-being.
Absolutely.
So meditation is a great one. He also suggests Prozac or other SSRIs, which target the serotonin receptors in your brain that basically like reset your level of happiness to something that's slightly higher. And that's not exactly something that I would recommend.
Yeah, it's a hard no for me. Yeah.
Though I do understand there are people who genuinely have genetic disorders where they need something like that.
Sure. I mean, there's people who are wired to be more pessimistic, perhaps. Depressed, even.
Right. And he's saying that everybody has their own set point for their pessimism or optimism. I mean, everyone's on a range, but some people are higher than others.
Right.
But taking an SSRI would move your set point of optimism up. And then the third option is cognitive behavioral therapy, which I am a fan of that.
Sure.
It's a really effective practice. It's actually far more effective than the traditional psychoanalysis of just talking about things that make you upset and finding the root cause of it. You know, like Freud or Jung's method of like regressing back to childhood and talking about those experiences. So cognitive behavioral therapy came from this idea that doesn't actually help. What helps is treating the behavior. So whenever you have, like if you have a problem with feelings of anger or jealousy, you can stop yourself in those moments and reevaluate how you're reacting. And you can use these positive mantras to reinforce the new behavior. And that's like giving a peanut to your elephant. Every time you make a right decision, you get a little benefit. Maybe you get a little endorphin rush or hormone boost because it feels good to make this positive change. And if you do that enough times, eventually you will automatically respond to those situations in a more positive light. So that's why I think it's really, besides meditation, it's the most natural way to treat your cognitive shortfalls. Or, you know, if you have a behavior that you want to alter, it's a really powerful tool to do that.
So is this like, you know, like a pause before you take action? Like, is that?
Yeah, it can be that. It's not just a pause though. It's a very active process. You have to recognize that you're in a moment that challenges you and have prepared already statements that reinforce positive behavior.
Yeah, see, this is really, you know, I mentioned general semantics earlier. There's an idea in that called the corticothalamic pause or thalamic, I guess I should say it as. Like, you never hear anybody say this shit.
Right.
so like, I've read it for years, but this is the first time I've ever actually been able to say it. And that's sort of, that's a very similar concept to where there is a kind of a trigger that can set the ship straight, before you react. Like, you recognize the situation that you're in. And obviously, like, cortico is, cortex and thalamus,
Right.
And that's what that's referencing. That's very interesting. So, okay. So there's three things that people can do. I was surprised though, that like ultimately, I mean, tell me a little bit more about, because here's the thing, a lot of stress that people deal with is that they have this notion of this is how things should be. Right. That's a problem. And,
Yeah.
and
Because there is no way that things should be.
no, right. No one has to do anything just because you think something should be, a certain way. Myself, and one of kind of Sovryn Tech's major themes is just providing the amount of the largest amount of options, the greatest amount of options, for you, like avenues for any human being to be able to traverse. It's what it's all about, is options, right? But a lot of people are rigid. This is how things should be. But Haidt here is basically saying, no, that's just not so. I mean, tell me more about that.
Yeah. So there's two things I want to say about that.
Sure.
It's really interesting that you bring up the idea of having more options.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is essential to freedom.
Yeah.
But what Haidt argues later on in the book is that having more options doesn't actually make people happier. Like, people think that having more options makes them happier, but not always. I mean, and this has been proven by other studies too.
Sure.
Is that the more options you have, the more you feel like you didn't choose the best one when you do make a decision.
Right.
It's like the difference between having a choice between 3 flavors of ice cream or 20. Whenever you do pick one, you can't really be sure that it's the best one because there's so many others.
Oh, I think this is absolutely true. I mean, this is, speaking of earlier, this is why I think a lot of people are on social media, is because it gives them a very simple worldview to buy into, in places they think that they can go for the truth without having to critically think. I get to choose, they don't want to choose between, pick your ism, whatever that happens to be, socialism, communism, capitalism, whatever, Georgism, I don't know, whatever ism they want to run with. They just want, okay, no, I want to, there should be an us versus them. There needs to be a horde and an alliance, and I'll pick one of those. They don't want choice. You're absolutely right.
It reduces their options by sticking with the well-worn path.
Yes, exactly. Continue, please.
Yeah. So anyway, having more options doesn't always make someone happier. What makes people happy is feeling like they've made a really good beneficial choice, and not just for themselves, but for the people around them that they care about. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was, so you also mentioned that people believe that there's a way that things should be.
Yes.
They really have a strong prejudice towards a certain path. But one thing that Haidt argues in this book is that there is no way that things should be. And he best sums up this idea by quoting Shakespeare and saying that nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So anything that happens to you, it's not, there's no motive behind it necessarily. Nothing's good or bad. It's how you evaluate it and how it affects you mentally and how you make meaning out of it that gives it the good or bad quality.
Yeah. I mean, life is just so complex beyond the possibility of blanket terming or big tenting any action as good or bad, because people say, well, that, and I've brought this up many times, that guy, he stole, I don't know, he stole a can of beans or something with a gun, or, he cut
me off on the highway,
all these things. And it's like, the person that cut you off on the highway, fuck, maybe they're running their pregnant wife to the fucking hospital, or the can of beans, guy might have a kid at home and he just doesn't have the money, and, he did what he had to do, whatever. I mean, point being, like, things are just way too complex. This idea of good, bad, right and wrong. No, like that's not there at all. And there are, all right. So this is controversial. And I think this was maybe to help sell his book. He made a very controversial example. And we'll get into it, about the brother and the sister.
Oh, yes. How could I forget?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he tells this story, a theoretical story, because he's a psychologist that studies the disgust response in humans. So he is really fascinated by this, and it's part of his job to come up with scenarios that disgust people and then figure out why do they feel that way.
It's such a great job.
Yeah. So one of the stories that he tells to his subjects to get a response out of them is there. So he wants to know, what's your response to the brother and the sister who are on vacation together in a cabin alone, and they decide that it would be interesting for them to make love. And the sister's already on birth control, the brother uses a condom, so there's no chance of pregnancy. And they both feel closer after the encounter, even though they decide not to do it again. So is this right or wrong? And can you explain why? And the fascinating thing is that most people say, well, no, it's wrong. I mean, what if they had a child? There's a greater chance of genetic mutation because of the inbreeding.
Yep.
But they both used birth control, so that's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then most people say, well, I still feel like it's wrong, but I can't exactly put my finger on why. And sometimes people will make up reasons. They'll confabulate.
Mm-hmm.
They respond with disgust, so they have to reach for some sort of reason as to why. Or
this is where the power of religion comes in, because you can use it to justify any position you have, because God. So, yeah, right. Continue.
Sure. Well, basically, what he points out with that experiment is that people think that their beliefs have some sort of rational backing behind them, when at times there is no reason behind it. It's just an emotional response. It's what you've been trained to feel your entire life.
Right.
And certainly there are certain things that are genetic, that are common to all of humanity. Like people being afraid of snakes or spiders. I suppose I shouldn't say all humanity, but the vast majority. And this is another case of where people feel like it's wrong and they think that they have reasons as to why, but clearly they actually don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to point at, in that example, it's easy to point at and say, well, there's an evolutionary drive to not, because the genes want to express themselves perhaps in the best way possible. And you could kind of make an argument from evolution, but then at the same time, people are so hot about their vaunted reason. And reason is something that is supposed to go beyond the instinct, right? Like logic is supposed to go beyond the instinct or beyond the evolutionary drive, perhaps. I love this work. I mean, it's an incredibly controversial example that I am not standing behind for a second. I am just saying that I appreciate his work in pointing out, hey, well, why do you really think that this is wrong? And then, when you deconstruct that, oh boy, what are you left with? Frankly, a handful of nothing.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's really fascinating too. He talks about Gazzaniga's split brain experiments.
Oh, fuck. Oh,
I know that freaks you out.
Oh, this is real. Like phantom hand syndrome, or not or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Is it phantom hand syndrome?
Phantom limb.
Well, phantom limb is when you lost something, like you lost an arm, but you still feel it.
Oh, it's like the alien hand syndrome.
The alien, that's what it is. It's the alien hand. People really did this. So they cut the...
So there were people who were... This wasn't just an experiment. It was a treatment.
No, it was a treatment for epilepsy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It actually improved people's lives.
Right.
It wasn't just like some secret Nazi doctor experiment.
I'm sure they did plenty of it, but yeah, right.
Yeah. So anyway, these people had their corpus callosum severed.
Which is a bridge between the right and left hemisphere of your brain. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were actually experiments done with these people where they would be shown an image with one eye, either left or right. And if it was on the if they saw it with the right eye, the image would be sent to the left hemisphere of the brain, and vice versa. So they actually discovered, and there's a lot more detail in this experiment, but essentially what they discovered is if you see an image with the side of your brain that doesn't do language processing. Well, actually, I should start with the other side. If you see an image with the side of your brain that does the language processing, then you can immediately say, oh, that was a hat on the card, or that was a car. But if you do it on the other side, then people can't exactly, they don't have a verbalization for what they saw. But they did an additional experiment where they showed two images, and it was flashed for just a few milliseconds. So they had to pick out which images they were flashed after the experiment was over, and say what the connection was. And they actually discovered that people will confabulate and make up reasons for why they chose the images that are associated with the ones they saw.
Right.
That was the ultimate result. There's more going on in there that I can't explain.
Yeah.
Just talking about it off the top of my head. But essentially, people will say, oh, I saw this, and so this must be associated with it because, you have to clean the chicken's coop with a shovel or something. When the truth is, like, they're totally making up a reason for why they chose that card. Right. And they could be flashed a command on the side of with the eye that goes to the side of the brain that doesn't have the language processing. Like if they're flashed the word walk, they'll get up and start walking away. And when asked why, they'll say, oh, I was going to the bathroom, or I was going to get a drink or something.
Even though that wasn't the case.
Yeah. So they can actually have ideas implanted in their brain without knowing that it's happening. They'll actually think that the idea was generated from within.
Yeah. This is such a weird, and for folks to understand, it's funny too, because I was telling you about split brain experiments before you started reading this book. And because I don't know, I was reading it one night and I forgot how I even ended up there. I think I was doing something on what I was reading was about alien consciousness stories in science fiction. So I was reading about that. And it led me to Wikipedia about these split brain experiments. And I'm just reading this, and just the thought of your corpus callosum, of that getting cut, it just freaks me the fuck out. And I'm not a squeamish guy. Okay. I mean, if we want to get visceral about it, I mean, I've helped people put parts back inside of themselves. I mean, I'm not a squeamish guy at all. Okay. But that just bothers the fuck out of me. And really anything that messes with my brain, I am not okay with, because I've worked so hard on this thing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Wow. Really grosses me out. Just thinking about it, makes my stomach churn a little bit.
Well, fortunately you don't have to get this surgery,
right?
Because you don't have epilepsy.
It's just but I mean, and it does raise a lot of questions about consciousness itself. I don't want to get sidetracked, but wow, is it weird?
Yeah. The brain is very important to that, but not the whole thing.
Right.
And we'll talk about that in the next book.
Yeah.
But there are a couple other major points that he talks about in the happiness hypothesis. Things like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And he makes the argument, that's not always true, but there are cases where it is true. And then he also talks about how people are incredibly social beings, but they're also highly independent. Yeah. And it's this contradiction, but there are universals like the Dunbar number that, humans need this connection. They need to feel that they have really fulfilling relationships. And he talks more about relationships at the end of the book, not just with other people, but also with your job and with your hobbies or your habits. So basically, the conclusion of the book is that happiness comes from between, not from within or from without, like the two major differing philosophies of the ancient East and the new Western culture.
Mm-hmm.
They both claim. Like, people say you can, well, people say you can't buy happiness, but people believe that you can.
Right.
And the truth is, you can purchase things that increase your happiness, but not everything that you buy is going to make you happy.
Right.
Some things, like new watches or whatever, they're just a signal to other people that you have wealth, and that doesn't ultimately make you happier. What makes you happier is spending time with the ones you love.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a book like this that basically is helping you get your thought process into shape is really key. Like, why do you react this way? Why can't I? I mean, especially, like you said, with the New Year's resolutions things, trying to understand, okay, why can't I get on this diet? Why can't I stick to it? And this book, helps explain, well, here's solutions and this is why. And I think that's absolutely key, and frankly a great thing to open up, discussing, because we will get into this, diet, kind of new things that we're doing as far as that goes, supplements and all this stuff. Like, how do I stick to it, or how do I stick to a workout regime? Well, figure out how your brain works first and why you can't stick to it, perhaps. I think it also speaks to a overall point that's going to come up throughout this episode, that you are an individual and you've got to listen to your body. And, no one can you can get an idea of how things work. Like you said, there are kind of certain universals, but you've really got to learn to listen to your body and understand how you operate, because you look at the person next to you, is like, wow, how do they eat no sugar so easily? Like they don't even bother touching it. Well, you operate a different way, and you got to understand how you operate, and appreciate and respect that. So, I want to get into another book. Do you think that have we got the happiness hypothesis covered?
Yeah, there's so much in that book. I could keep talking about it, but I think it'd be wise for us to move on to the next book so that we can get into the main topics of the show. Right.
So the next thing I want to talk about is actually from an institute, an organization that I've been very supportive of and have talked about many, many times over the years on Sovryn Tech. So I think it's great to bring it up. Now, the institute itself is the HeartMath Institute, which does very unique and interesting work, in my opinion, but also very valid work. I recognize that not everybody in academic circles necessarily buys everything that the HeartMath Institute lays out, but I think they are hitting on some very, very important concepts, notions, and frankly, reality of how the human body works. I mean, they're basically paying attention to, very simply, to, they're doing a lot more than this, but one of the things they're paying attention to is like the communication between the brain and your literal heart, and like, say, the electromagnetic fields that, operate between those two. But so you read a book. It's a short book. This book came out originally, I think, in like 1999, and but it's had like newer editions redone, over and over again. But it's called the HeartMath Solution. So give me the breakdown on this.
So this book is really great. It's only like 4 or 5 hours. It's kind of a short listen.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating. Like I was amazed because they were talking about the biology of the heart, what the heart actually does, and proving scientifically that it is actually a thinking and feeling center.
Right.
And there's physical basis for this. The heart has neurons.
Yes.
The heart produces endorphins.
Yes.
The heart communicates important information to the rest of your body, not just with electrochemical signals, but also with its timing and its pressure. Mm-hmm. That is a language that your heart speaks, because not every So you can get a general idea of how fast your heart is beating by like timing your pulse. But that doesn't measure the difference in the length of time between each beat. And that is actually a way that your heart communicates with the rest of your body.
Right.
Not only that, but your heart does generate an electromagnetic field.
Yep.
It's actually 20 times stronger than the one that your brain produces. And it can be measured up to 10 feet away.
Yeah.
So this is also fascinating because your heart's magnetic field could literally interact with the magnetic field of other people.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is why. So, and this is why I've brought up the HeartMath Institute many times. A couple things. One is that, you know, we think, oh, wow, those ancient Egyptians, they were such fucking morons. Why didn't they care about the brain? They tossed that out, but they put the heart in a canopic jar because they thought that was like the center of a person's consciousness or intelligence. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe they weren't so stupid, you know, like maybe they understood something. And also, you know, as I often say, the world is suffering from, and this is long before the pandemic, the world is suffering from two things. Lack of touch, and we don't tell each other how we really feel. Both of those are relative to empathy, but I think that we actually have a really hard time, you know, being empathetic. I think that this electromagnetic field is a form of communication. It's an unconscious form of communication. That, I mean, in other cultures around the world, like Japanese and others, have this idea that there are languages. It's not just body language. There are languages that so many aspects of being a human being that you speak to each other that are not verbal at all. You know, in fact, I mean, now there's even like research to suggest this, that 90% of communication, or only 10% of communication, is verbal. 90%, the rest of communication of what a person receives comes from completely different things. And I think that when there is a lack of closeness, that's what allows for, and that speaks to that lack of touch. That's what allows for, I think, other human beings really to do very horrendous shit. It's because they don't feel this, you know, field between each other anymore. And to say nothing of even just the physical contact, but even just that closeness. Real issue. Go ahead.
Yeah, and smell is also a major part of that. I mean, whatever hormones you are secreting from your body, those are, other people can smell it. And this has actually been proven. People will sweat. People have sweated on pads in experiments while being neutral and while being scared. Mm-hmm. And then other people had to smell what was on the pad. And people who smelled the pad from the people who were scared while they sweated, they got scared.
Yeah.
They could smell it. Literally smell the fear.
Well, this is another thing that actually speaks to Haidt's work, that we're removed from the animal world in a very real way, you know, in the mechanized world. And we forget as humans, and we can even look at other primates, we forget just how much smell matters. Smell's a bigger deal I mean, in fact, I'd almost argue the reason a lot of animals, you know, other animals haven't developed like really complex language skills, they don't need to. Like the smell and so many other things like are telling them so much more of a story. You know, I mean, like there's the old saying, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A scent is worth 1,000,000. Right. And we forget that, but we can easily, we could look at our captain, and everything he does is he smells first. It's not even like a look. It's not, you know, whatever. It's just, you know, he's sniffing around. You can, if you take a second to look at how animals interact, you can see how key smell is. And we fucking just ignore it. And we just sanitize the shit out of every goddamn thing, you know, to the point that we're walking around almost literally half blind, you know, because we don't smell or because we don't get close enough to things where other aspects, say like the electromagnetic field of our heart, doesn't come in contact with it. And we ignore this stuff really at our peril. But continue, please.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. That is the way to connect and communicate with people. Mm-hmm. Body language is a big part, of course.
Sure.
But the physical closeness, there are multiple aspects of communication with someone, just being close to them.
Right.
So the HeartMath solution that is being argued for in this book is based off of all of that research, saying the heart is actually a thinking, feeling, communicating organ.
Yes, absolutely.
It does so many functions besides just pump your blood. Like, thinking about it just as a pump is totally underselling all of the things that it does for you. And so the solution is, for any time you're feeling stressed or angry or just experiencing an emotion that's negative, you can take time out to sit and feel your heart, and just that's it. Take 5 minutes and just focus on your heart.
Kind of like the meditation.
Yeah. But it's like focusing your consciousness there and trying to see what is your heart telling you, because sometimes solutions will just come to you if you sit and think about it long enough.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't work. Like they say, it's not always a sure thing. But essentially, the solution is just to pay more attention to what your heart is telling you, because that has traditionally been seen as the seat of the soul or the spirit, or even if you just want to say emotion, feeling. Whenever people feel something really strongly, they put their hand to their heart,
right,
as a way of expressing how strong that feeling was. And there's something to that. So just focusing on your heart and what it's telling you, I think could be really beneficial. And that's what this book is arguing for, essentially.
Yeah. So, like the idea that all consciousness and all thought process and everything else just happens upstairs, just happens, like in the physical brain. I mean, that's just nonsense. Like, just stop. People need to stop with that whole line of thinking. We'll kind of touch on it actually when we talk about probiotics later on. But like how much your gut flora has to do with your attitude, and attitude is everything when it comes to perception, and perception is absolutely key to your reactions. This is it's dominoes.
Your reality is built around your perceptions.
Exactly. And so arguably your reality, your perceptions are built around not just your brain, but it's built around your heart. It's built around, your gut flora. It's built around the sensations that hopefully you're taking the time to receive throughout, every sensory organ on your body. Your entire epidermis, for fuck's sake. But you would like what your toes are doing, what your fingers are doing, and so on. I hate this word, but I'll use it. there's such a holistic approach to the actions that you take. And yeah, I think taking 5 minutes, it's like, whoa, what is the heart saying? Or what is the rest of my body, saying? Paying attention to every single organ within you. And you can do that. Take some quiet, take some stillness and everything, but you can do that. It's tough though. Today, it's very tough because you're just bombarded. Your senses are bombarded with horseshit nonstop.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main point is that, if you're feeling an initial response to something, pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes people call it the gut instinct. It might also be called the heart instinct. You have more intelligence than just your consciousness.
Right.
And it's important to pay attention to that, because oftentimes there's more wisdom there than you can give it credit for.
Yeah. I'd butcher the Nietzsche quote, but there's a much better quote by Nietzsche than that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But it's that there's more, there's more wisdom in your body than in all your philosophers combined. And man, if that's not one of the most, if not the most true statement ever said. And I agree with that. And he's not just talking about in your brain. He's talking about in the entire, he's saying body, your whole body. And I think that's really key. So yeah, beautiful book, and something that needs to be researched. Like, you need to understand how your body operates overall, and how to listen to the entire package.
Yes.
Because we don't do that.
Yeah, and this is kind of part of what I was saying earlier when you said mind-body, and I said there might be something else
Right.
that we want to add to that.
Right.
So if you're going to talk about the mind as something separate from the body, then I think we should also add emotion or spirit or something like that, something that fits in that realm, because that's also an incredibly important aspect to health and to consciousness itself.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree. That there is kind of, and I think it creates, I mean, mind, part of the problem is that and this is sort of what we're speaking to. Too many people just think of mind as the physical brain, and that somehow I just have to fix the chemistry that's going on up there. Right. Take Prozac or whatever, but I think you actually need to go further. I think, and I'm not saying take Prozac. I'm just saying, I think you need to go further. You need to understand that there is so much chemistry going on before it even gets to the brain necessarily, and who knows where it starts. It could be chicken and the egg. I mean, it could be paradoxical, for fuck's sake. I don't know, but
it could start in all three at the same time.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. But like understanding alone, even if you don't know the order, the order of processes, understanding alone that no, your heart is just as important as your brain. And I mean, even when you consider what the HeartMath Institute is saying, and this actually will play well really into our kind of the first story I want to get into here, that'll start talking about a little more physical health, perhaps, even though, again, they shouldn't be seen as separate. But that, like, why would you do anything in your diet or in your life that would in any way affect your cardiovascular system, that would in any way, affect your heart? If your heart is so important to the way that you think, your heart has neurons. You're going to take the fuck care of that thing at all costs.
Well, I think people would if they understood actually how detrimental it is to their physical health and well-being. If they could see how powerful stress and anger is to the heart.
Yes.
Because the reason that this solution was developed was to help people combat those feelings of stress, anger, jealousy, rage, hatred. Anytime you're feeling those, it's actually having major negative detrimental effects to your health.
Right.
And to your heart, to your cardiovascular system, because there are elevated levels of stress hormone that can actually stay elevated for hours afterwards.
Yes.
Even if you only feel it for a few minutes, like the guy on the highway cuts you off. If you get serious road rage from that, that's going to literally affect you the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You might not even be aware of it. It might be subtle, but it's measurable. There are hormones that they can measure that have told them in experiments that, when you feel this, even for a few minutes, it can really ruin your health. And that's why it's so important to catch yourself before you go down that spiral and start listening to your heart and realize, well, maybe he was rushing his pregnant wife to the hospital or something. You don't know what the motivation was behind that, but you can affect the way that you respond to it. And if you really value your health, you will find ways to not be pissed off. Yeah,
absolutely. I just want to cue the band Heart, listen to you. Was that Heart? I think that was Heart. Anyway. let's take a little break. And then I think we can, so this book, the HeartMath Solution, absolutely everybody check this out. If you go to their website, they have they have devices, apps, all kinds of things, that are actionable. This isn't just like woo-woo stuff. Hey, believe this. They have like real shit that you can get your hands on that can help out with this process, managing stress and so on, that I think are worth looking into, if this is an issue for anyone. So, okay, so let's take that break, and then we're going to come back, and we are going to get into, well, shall we say, more of the physical side. And we'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech. Woo! Hey, is Sovryn Tech not enough for you? Well, let me tell you about something you'll never get enough of. No, I mean it. We're talking about a radio show and podcast that goes all night long, 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night, 365 days a year, and has been going since the early aughts, baby. I am talking about none other than Free Talk Live. It's the show you control. That's right. It's an open phones call-in show that is ready for you. And if you're worried that your voice isn't going to get heard, don't be. We are talking about the only libertarian radio show stateside. And not only that, it's also the number 26 talk show in the United States. Start listening now and go ahead and hit that massive back catalog at freetalklive.com. The Golden Stallion guarantees a good time, and you might even find some episodes with me on them when you do. That's freetalklive.com, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Let's get back to the show. We are back with more Sovryn Tech, that being the supplemental. And of course, you have me, Brian Sovryn, and Ellen Sovryn. Yeah, I think I'm going to, because, I have an old saying on Sovryn Tech, an old axiom, and that is outlive the state. Like, how do you get freedom? Well, just outlive the state.
Yeah, be healthier, wealthier, and wiser.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not wealthier, but.
Yeah, whatever that looks like. That's a subjective thing, I think, for a lot of people.
Sure.
But, yeah, being ridiculously healthy, that's a great way to get some happiness in your life. And there has been, so let's get into this. I've got a story from CNN here. There has been a trend. It's not new. There is a body positivity movement, which in the abstract and in its grassroots, and it did have a genuine grassroots form, I think is an absolutely beautiful thing. Like, I think it's a wonderful thing. Yeah,
definitely.
Right.
Appreciating and loving yourself is really the key to being able to love other people.
Yes.
And to enjoy and appreciate life.
Yeah. And really, I think to even have the willpower to make, engage in actionable steps, to go in whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah.
Whatever that happens to be.
Feeling like you are worthy.
Sure. Yeah. And we are all, every human, you're worthy. All right. You're a human being. You're worthy. Like there's no statute of, I don't know, like there's no limits on this. Okay. And I think that's a really key aspect to kind of what's been going on. So basically a couple weeks ago, Cosmo, as in Cosmopolitan, put out I think it was a multi-cover series about, well, the term that was getting tossed around, or the phrase, was fat but fit. Basically saying that, no, you can be perfectly healthy and be obese. In fact, I've heard a great term go around now. Instead of saying like overweight, like, this is dumb. Okay. So I have a Mi Band 5. It's kind of like a Fitbit. And it tells me like what my weight should be, that I'm 6'1". So right now I weigh about 220. It says I should weigh like 170 pounds or something like that.
Well, maybe if you were a skeleton.
Right. and see, that's a problem, right? Is that there's these standards of you're supposed to weigh this much. I am not unfit, not by a long shot. Okay.
I don't know how it's figuring that out, because I think you have a very large skeletal setup. Yeah. So I think your body weight is perfect for your frame.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So there's problems with this. Also, like I have it's not a boast. I'm just saying, because I work on it. Okay. It's not a boast. I have significant muscle mass. Yeah, by design.
Really heavy too.
Right. Okay. So I'm never going to weigh 170. Like that's just.
Nor should you.
Right. I'd be terrified if I weighed 170, but that doesn't mean that I'm overweight. Okay. Now, so there's a difference between overweight and overfat. Okay.
Oh, I see what the distinction between just being heavier than your average BMI or whatever.
Exactly.
And then actually being, having a large fat supply on your body.
So body fat percentage is what actually matters. Weight can be useful if you have like certain goals that you're going for. Are you burning fat or whatever, things like this. But ultimately it means nothing. Okay. Like it really doesn't mean anything. You know, it's a helpful metric, but it is not the metric. Unfortunately, in our society, it seems like the scale is the metric. And to prove the point, it's been a cultural norm for as long as I can remember, and as an old a book as I can remember, where you don't ask a woman how much she weighs, right?
I'll tell you right now how much I weigh.
Sure.
135.
Well, all right. So you see, but this is the thing: is there's a stigma that you don't do that. Why? Because people are judged by their weight. That's nonsense.
No, it's by their pant size.
Sure, right? Yeah, right. But I mean, it's just, yeah, I know what you're saying.
No, there's just some ridiculous alternative.
Yeah, if you're not wearing a size -2, you're, what are you, right? So,
but it's still just as pointless, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, exactly. So these metrics, like people, just like everything else we've been talking about in this episode, it's all wrong. You know, like it's absolutely all wrong. I think. So first off, okay. So these covers and these stories about how, no, you know, you can be over fat and be healthy, caused quite a stir in the fitness space. And in fact, I'll just say I was quite livid. Now, let me be abundantly clear. I'm well aware that there are people who they have genuine conditions, okay, to where, they are naturally, you know, if we're going to use the term over fat, right? To where their BMI is something that would not be considered the healthy norm.
Well, certainly this is the condition of people in America where over 50% of people are obese. This is just what the world is now.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I understand that like that's become like the norm. Okay. And that has to do with American diet and a bunch of other things. I'm just saying that there are genuine medical conditions that people have that have nothing to do with diet. It doesn't matter what they ate or whatever, to where their BMI would still be out of range according to, you know, whatever, you know, nutritionist or, you know, medical professional. So I want to be incredibly sensitive to that, because I know that that's very real. All right. And this kind of speaks to the overall problem here, is like, it's not really, and I want to read the story, but it's not really an issue of, you know, like, can you be healthy and over fat? Okay. The real issue here is that people are being made to feel less worthy because they do not fit in this Hollywood paradigm of what healthy is. Okay. Or what healthy looks like. And I think that's the real issue that's going on. And I agree that there is a problem in society.
Oh, beauty standards are so out of whack.
It's ridiculous.
It's really disgusting.
Yes. And disgusting is a great word for it. It's terrible. Okay. So let me be abundantly clear that everyone is worthy. Okay. You know, based on their humanity alone, regardless of, you know, whatever, physicality, mentality, go down the list. Okay. So let me, you know, I want to be super clear on that. The other point, and other fitness people have brought this up, is that if you're looking at Cosmo for your you know, for your health advice, oh man, are you looking in the wrong fucking place? And as somebody who has dealt directly with editors at Cosmo, I'll admit it. Okay. I mean, I can tell you, like these are just not the people to trust. You know, don't do it. And I mean, and if you've listened to Sovryn Tech over a long period of time, you know very well my history and my experiences and well, anyway, it's a mess. It's more of that crap that like what's online isn't real. So, I want to read the story and get into it. But I wanted to caveat with all of that. And in fact, other people have brought up, it was really great. They're saying, well, like, if you're going to believe what Cosmo says, like, let's go back to like the late 90s and early aughts where you had this, what did they call it? Heroin chic. And it's not heroin like Lara Croft. It's heroin like, you know, the drug, where basically what Cosmo thought was beautiful and should be on the fucking cover of their magazine were people who looked incredibly malnourished, like they didn't get any sleep. You know, I mean, it's
and this is why anorexia and bulimia are so rampant with models, but even with younger people. Mm-hmm. because it was sold to them for so long that, being that skinny is what makes you beautiful.
Right.
And that could literally kill you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or wind you up in the hospital.
Yeah. So Cosmo is not the place to give two shits about what they think. Really about anything, in my opinion. Anyway, that gets into a much larger story that I could really share a lot of anecdotes on. But bottom line being, I want to get into the CNN story quick, and it's not long, but it raises some interesting points that I think need to be considered, especially around this fat but fit concept, So are we ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. Fat but fit is a myth when it comes to heart health, new study shows. And that's why I think it's great to bring this in, because we were just talking about the HeartMath Institute and the HeartMath solution. So here we go. We'll read it. And this is from, by the way, January 21st, 2021. So this is as fresh as it gets. Yeah. So here it is. The negative effects of excess body fat on heart health can't be canceled out by maintaining an active lifestyle, according to new research. Stop for a second. This is important. Okay. Because let's just say this. I mean, you and I, Ellen, we go to the gym. We'll talk about this more in a minute. We go to the gym and we've been going for a long time, enough that we kind of know who's the regulars, who's not, right?
Definitely.
And you can say, well, 2020 happened. Yeah, I know. But really in New Hampshire, that, as far as being out of the gym, that was only true for about a month to 2 to 3 months tops, right? It was like March to June, because we started going back in June, and the regulars were right there. Like we these people, I mean, you instantly saw them. And I think there's a lot of people there who have been working out for years that now they might have a medical condition like I was talking about earlier, and I'd be respectful to that, but where like that BMI has not gone down. I mean, they're strong, no doubt about that. They're active. They're at the gym as often as we are. They're rocking it. We're there a lot. But like you're seeing maybe improvements in like their biceps are bigger or something like that, but you're not seeing any improvements on a more holistic sense.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
It almost looks as though, while they are strong and fit, they have a lot of muscle mass, their diet is really out of balance. Something's
not clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, people can be however they want to be. Do you understand? That's why I wanted to caveat this whole conversation with, you are worthy regardless. Okay. I am not any better than you because whatever metric you want to go by, or whatever I do at the gym or how I look or something like that.
Absolutely.
That's just not the case. Okay. So, but this is really key, is that just because I think a lot of these people think, and I bet I could ask them and of course I do so in an empathetic fashion. I bet I could ask them, why are you doing this? And they would just say, well, it's important for me to work out. But then it would never get any further than, well, I am trying to achieve, said goal. Like a lot of people, I think, just go to the gym because they read a story or their doctor told them, hey, you should, get your heart rate up, 2-3 times a week for about 15 minutes. And that's all that they're doing, and there are larger issues, though, relevant to heart health that I don't think are being considered. And the story is kind of bringing that to fore. So I'm going to keep reading here. Previous studies had suggested that being physically fit could mitigate the negative effects of being overweight on heart health. Or as we said earlier, perhaps overfat is a better term. But this is not the case. According to a new study in the European Journal of Preventative Cardiology, a journal, blah, 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 published Thursday, quote, one cannot be fat but healthy. This was the first nationwide analysis to show that being regularly active is not likely to eliminate the detrimental health effects of excess body fat, end quote, said study author Alejandro Lucia. Quote, our findings refute the notion that a physically active lifestyle can completely negate the deleterious effects of overweight and obesity, end quote. Previous research provided some evidence that people who were, quote, fat but fit, end quote, could have similar cardiovascular health to those who were, quote, thin but unfit, end quote. But Lucia said this has had unintended consequences. Quote, this has led to controversial proposals for health policies to prioritize physical activity and fitness above weight loss. Our study sought to clarify the links between activity, body weight, and heart health. End quote. Researchers used data from 527,662 working adults, 500,000 people. This is not some 3,000 person study that Harvard somehow thought was good enough. This is 500,000 people that this was done on. From Spain, insured by an occupational risk prevention company, but with an average age of 42. They were put into groups according to activity and groups by body weight. 42% of participants were normal weight with a body mass index of 20 to 24.9. Okay. And then 41% were overweight, body mass index of 25 to 29.9, and 18% were obese, BMI 30 or above. Then researchers looked at their cardiovascular health by categorizing them for diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure, all of which are major risk factors for stroke and heart attack. After investigating the associations between BMI, activity level, and risk factors, researchers concluded that any level of activity meant it was less likely that an individual would have any of the three risk factors compared with no exercise, with the risk of high blood pressure and diabetes decreasing with increased activity levels. Quote, this tells us that everyone, irrespective of their body weight, should be physically active to safeguard their health, end quote. So, yeah, they're saying, okay, weight loss might be more important, but that doesn't mean still don't be active.
Yeah, because being active provides immediate benefits.
Right. So going on, however, the study showed greater cardiovascular risk for overweight and obese participants compared with those of a normal weight, regardless of how much exercise they did. Participants who were obese and active were twice as likely to have high cholesterol, 4 times as likely to have diabetes, and 5 times as likely to have high blood pressure as those who were normal weight but inactive. Quote, exercise does not seem to compensate for the negative effects of excess weight. This finding was also observed overall in both men and women when they were analyzed separately, end quote. Lucia underlined that it is equally important to fight obesity and inactivity. Quote, weight loss should remain a primary target for health policies together with promoting active lifestyles, end quote. There's a little bit more on it where, they go into, more about the study and everything, but I think the point is made here. And that is, you can't just go to the gym. It has to be a significantly larger approach. Your entire body has to be involved with this, inside and out. You have to pay attention to diet, whatever that may be. There's not just one diet, I think, that works for everybody. I've never believed that. And I've brought that up many times. I've said that many times on the show whenever I've talked about diet. Even when I wasn't a vegetarian, I said, no, there are people where vegetarianism or veganism is completely valid and maybe even best,
But we can say stay away from the processed foods because that's
true
not
across
good
the board.
for anyone.
That's true across the board. That's a point I've brought up a million times as well, is that the reason why you think every diet works at first is because the first thing every decent diet will tell you to do is to cut out the processed food. That's true for West Beech, Mediterranean, every single one of these fucking diets tell you get away from the processed foods. And so you think at first it's working really well and you're feeling better. Why? It's not because of the diet that you're on. It's because you cut out the fucking processed foods, right? So that's great. But these are the steps that you have to take. Like, look, no, you can say fat but fit. Heart health is absolutely essential. If you didn't get that with the HeartMath conversation that we were just having, here it is in this CNN story. You have to pay attention to that. You have to work on that. That's as key as any other aspect of this. I love that you brought it up, that you mentioned, Ellen, like saying that there's a third thing. It's not just mind body. Like maybe general semantics should go so far as to have a couple dashes, and it is mind, body, heart, right? Because you should talk about the heart as something more, because it really is an amalgam. It's not just a physical organ. Right. It's also a very mental organ in a real way, I think. And so you should kind of say like mind, heart, body. I think that actually there's some really nice kind of puns within that as well. But that's the way you have to think about it. And once you put the heart really in a center position of health for both mentality and physicality, it does become its own thing. But then this whole idea of fat but fit becomes incredibly specious. Okay. Now, again, like I said, there are people who have genuine conditions where their BMI cannot go down and they could be as healthy as they can possibly be as a human being. All right. And I accept that, but those are certain conditions, and it's a pretty good bet that those conditions aren't necessarily something that is cause for how much of the American population did you say is over fat or obese? Yeah.
So actually in 2018, they did a survey and found that 42% of the American population is obese. But that doesn't reflect the racial disparities. In the Black and Hispanic communities, it's closer to 50%. For white people, it's 42.
Yeah, I mean, and regardless, I think that, or I don't think, I know that number is dramatically higher than 50 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. So since the beginning of the 21st century,
right,
it's already gone up over 10%.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's exponential. like by definition.
Yeah.
So I mean, that really speaks to this, okay, is that like obesity affects your heart. Your heart health is central, key, and so like this argument, there are there are special cases, or not just special. There are cases where sure, like, I mean, again, I think what everybody's concerned about, I don't know what people are necessarily concerned about, but it really comes down to, do you get treated differently, because of your BMI? And I'm 100% on board that that's a problem.
Oh yeah.
There's no need to treat anybody differently.
Never.
I mean, and another thing I've said many times, I absolutely respect anybody that wants to live their life in front of a television with Cool Ranch Doritos, rocking it on the couch, and they want to do that. Go ahead. I don't care.
Yeah. Or if you have to eat Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast because you're always in a rush to get to work and that's the life you want to live, fine.
Sure. Again, I'm not here to tell anybody, how to go about it. All right. I mean, I guess in a sense I am saying like, okay, this is what research suggests, is that this is what allows for maybe the longest life or the healthiest or the happiest or whatever. Okay. But I'm the furthest from believing in a one size fits all affair, but there are universals in this vessel that we call the human body. Yeah.
And if you want to live a long, healthy life, you have to pay attention to your body.
But you are absolutely worthy as a human being, straight up. So, but this idea that like, fat but fit and everything else, like, no, because you are, I think, spreading, it's almost, and even people that are into the body positivity movement know that their movement has been co-opted by the likes of Cosmo, by the likes of a lot of different, food companies, and so on. They know that this is going on. But this is, I mean, who's going to love this whole fat but fit thing? Nabisco, Nestle, really?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just saying, like, they have all the incentives in the world to keep putting out their shitty food, and have the message out there that, no, it's okay. Don't worry about your heart. Who gives a shit? So anyway,
I could see where this could be a positive message if it was something like fat but mentally fit, because I think especially for the obese community, one thing that has been a struggle for a long time is the feeling of being worthy and of like being made fun of or made to feel ashamed of their bodies, and that is absolutely not necessary. And I feel like I've met people throughout my life who are obese who have felt extremely self-conscious because of it.
Yeah.
And you can't be mentally, emotionally healthy when you feel that way. So I am definitely supportive of people who are overweight or obese, reaching and achieving a level of mental and emotional health that, everybody else has, or, it's actually a lie because not everybody else has that, right? There are only a few people who have it, the people who really work on it and focus on it.
Right.
But everybody's entitled to that. Everybody's entitled to a feeling of loving themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish for everyone.
Yeah. And I think some perspectives in order, because we've got another article to get into, because there's so much shaming going around. But perspectives needed here, because I think there is this common concept that everybody just wants somebody with six-pack abs, guy or gal, or Z. Everybody wants somebody that has six-pack abs.
No.
Well, all right. Well, hold it. Well, I mean, let's put this in perspective. Okay. First off, evolutionarily, six-pack abs are not actually healthy. Like, you're supposed to have that extra 10 pounds to survive.
A
like
little
that.
extra pouch.
Right, exactly. Because that's if you happen to be like, if you are in a less than target rich environment for food, you have something to live off of, and your body will basically, live off of that stored fat. That's part of the reason that that's so normal. Also, something to keep in mind. So six-pack abs are not the definition of normal by any means. There's nothing wrong with it either, but it's also not the definition of normal. Also, to understand, there are less people on the planet with six-pack abs than there are millionaires on the planet. Okay. So
It's easier to become a millionaire than it is to get six-pack abs.
yeah. So have some fucking empathy for yourself. Okay. If you don't have six-pack abs, it's just by the numbers, like that's completely no pun intended, abnormal. Okay. Like that's not the standard at all. Even if everybody, I don't want to say everybody can't have six-pack abs, but I'm just saying that there aren't enough people on the planet with six-pack abs to even dream of like somehow that basically that would become like an evolutionary norm of any kind. It's just keep it in perspective that six-pack abs they're not that big a deal.
But I think that's another male beauty standard specifically that has been sold. You look at the cover of these romance novels, there's always like the shirtless guy with the six-pack abs.
Mm-hmm.
And even for like female Olympians, they have six-pack abs.
Yeah.
But I think some people see women that are that muscular as like, well, that's not an ideal body type.
Yeah.
It's not like what most people see as beautiful.
Go ahead.
I disagree. I think like any person can be beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
But you're right. Six-pack abs are certainly not standard.
Well, and what you're talking about is really the opposite end of the same problem. To where like, oh, well, a woman has six-pack abs. Oh, that's not, that.
Definitely a double standard.
Yeah, right.
I'm not kidding myself for a second there. There's double standards all over the place for men versus women and what's beautiful.
Yeah. So basically, there's nothing wrong with having six-pack abs. I'm not saying that. I like having six-pack abs, personally. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's a fine goal to have. But everybody fucking keep it in perspective. It's far from normal. And something we're going to talk about in the next story, which I think we can just basically, kind of bring in briefly here and kind of naturally, is that, this is from NPR, and Daniel Lieberman, who's a professor of human evolutionary biology at Harvard. He's been doing a lot of research on varying, indigenous peoples, tribes around the world, and finding that, basically like this idea of strength training and all this other stuff, like that's a fairly recent invention. Now, when I read the story that you shared with me, Ellen, you sent this to me, I do have points of contention. Like, I think a lot of people think that like strength training more or less started maybe with like Eugene Sandow or something in the late 19th century. No. Strength training's been around for a long time. Thousands of years. It's been a thing. On the grand scheme of Homo sapiens, getting into the six digits of years. Okay, yeah, sure. It is more modern in that maybe it's only been around for, 10,000 years or something like that. But it has been around for a good while, but it's far from the norm.
Right. Indigenous peoples don't really need strength training because they get the strength that they need from their daily actions.
Right.
And I guess it's possible. I could see where like strength training would become a thing in certain, like if men were trying to compete for something, or even women, like if you're trying to be in top shape for like the caper toss, for example.
Yeah.
You're going to be practicing that over and over again.
Absolutely.
Before the competition. So I could see where like ancient peoples did practice things in order to hone their skills, but it certainly wasn't like this guy who was going out running 5 miles every morning. Indigenous peoples would do that for survival reasons, but not just for the heck of it.
Yeah, there certainly wasn't. Bodybuilding is somewhat new. somewhat, in that, like, I don't think, I'm trying to, like, the people of Uruk, the first city, I don't think any of them were necessarily measuring their biceps. Like, okay, I get that they weren't doing that, but bottom line being is that a lot of this stuff that we like consider sexy now, I mean, a lot of this, it's marketing, it can be seen as sexy completely legitimately. And there's nothing wrong with that. But also, like, the fact that somehow everybody is duped, again, it's more of this reality distortion field, like what happens on social media and so on. Everybody being duped into, like, this is the standard that you need to be at. Oh, stop. That hasn't been a human norm ever, well, anyway.
Yeah. And to think that the biceps are the only things you need to work out in order to be fit.
Oh, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said from it, like, if you want to get started, as a guy, and maybe you want to impress people for whatever reasons, okay, start on your arms. Yes, because that can make up for a lot of other, what by that standard would be underdeveloped body parts by that standard. Sure. But yeah, get over it. So anyway, so this is really interesting stuff that he brings up. In fact, one of the areas that this professor, really concentrated on was that actually, because right now there's this phrase that, or this meme, cultural meme going around, that sitting is the new smoking.
Oh God, I've heard that so many times.
Yeah. And he basically says, no, not at all. Sitting is not the new smoking. In fact, sitting is incredibly normal for humans. And they put accelerometers on, a lot of these, people and everything. And, on these tribes, in these groups that they were studying. And they found that actually they sat a lot.
Well, so there is a caveat here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to pay attention to, because this really makes the difference. I think when sitting is the new smoking became a phrase, it came out of studies where people were being studied that live in the Western world,
mm-hmm.
that work the 9 to 5, sit in their office chair, and then they go home and they watch television and they're sitting on their couch. They're very comfortable, lazy boy. And these studies show things like, if you sit and you're not flexing your calves for at least 2 minutes every hour, then you're at a much higher risk for things like deep vein thrombosis.
Right.
Which is where a blood clot forms in one of your veins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really scary to me. And I heard this and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll get up and go to the bathroom or get a drink or something. I'll try to pay attention. If I've been sitting for an hour or more, just got to get up and walk across the house.
Mm-hmm.
And what this anthropologist was finding with these accelerometers was, yes, these native people sit for 8 to 10 hours a day, but they sit in chairs that don't have backs.
Yep.
So they're still strength training their back and their shoulders. They're still activating their upper body. So it's a much more active form of sitting than what we do, where we sit in comfortable chairs, where we let our backs get weak.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we end up with so much back pain as we get older. Another thing is that they're active while they're sitting.
Right.
They're getting up every few minutes to check on the kids or to stoke the fire. They're not just sitting for hours and hours and not moving at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So the issue isn't sitting. The issue is, there might be an issue with the chairs. Like he brings up the point, he says, the only people that had backs on their chairs were people who sat on thrones.
And those were so uncomfortable.
Right. There's a great moment in the movie that we reviewed this in a Sovryn Tech sometime over the recent months, with Hulk Hogan, No Holds Barred. I love that movie.
Yeah.
There's a great, like, the head of a studio, television studio, or of a television network, wants to like make Hulk Hogan feel really welcome. It's like, here, why don't you sit in this chair? It belonged to Louis XIV, the French king. And Hulk Hogan sits in it and like almost breaks the damn thing. and that's the point, is that like, no, these were really uncomfortable fucking chairs. It kind of drives the point home. Granted, he's a huge dude, and that creates its own problem, but then, well, anyway, but yes, those were incredibly uncomfortable chairs. Yeah. So there's that issue, of it, that, like the backs of the chairs is the issue, but basically the real issue is lethargy. The real issue is that, we're not moving, at all. Sitting for 8 to 10 hours a day. Okay, fine.
Even just fidgeting helps. That still activates parts of your muscles.
Yeah, exactly. So the real issue is just not moving. It's not necessarily that like sitting for extended periods of time is such a big problem. Now, I mean, I read this and I didn't see him talk much because like the paleo crowd is very much into, well, we used to squat a lot. We don't squat anymore. And that's creating varying health problems. He didn't really get into whether or not they were sitting just like on stumps or if they were squatting. And I don't know that an accelerometer would necessarily know the difference.
Yeah, that's not a distinction that he made.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the other little issues I had with what he was bringing up here. But I think the overall point is pretty sound that he's bringing up. And of course, he's recommending, every 10 minutes if you can, just do something. I don't know, just stand up and move or whatever.
Or even 2 minutes every hour.
Sure. I mean, like my Mi Band 5 tells me when I've been sitting for an hour. It says I've been sitting too long.
Do you pay attention to it?
I see it and I'm like, no, and see, this is a problem. Okay.
Your elephant is not trained.
Well, this is a problem. So it actually happens very rarely with me because I already do this anyway. Like I get up and kind of move around often enough as is because I drink a ton of water throughout the day and I get up to go and get it, downstairs and all of this business. When it comes on, I'm just like, yeah, I know. And I don't immediately think, well, shit, I've been sitting too long. I immediately think, why am I working this hard? Like that's what comes to mind for me, when that happens. And so that's a whole other thing that needs to be addressed. Right?
So it's not making you think of what you think that it should. It's not reminding you like time to take a walk. It's more like an hour has passed and you've been sitting in the same position and you didn't even realize an hour passed because you were working so hard. Yeah,
I basically want to say to it, it's like, well, that's nice, jackass. Why don't you get this work done for me then? Like I can't, I can't do anything about it. And that raises its own health concerns.
Yeah, you're getting pissed off at your Mi Band.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other angle. But you see, that speaks to sort of what you were talking about earlier about, okay, wait a minute. Why am I actually thinking this way? Why am I feeling frustrated? Is it because I'm concerned for my health or does it have to do with, even larger subjects, work and whatever else?
Well, I guess you'll have to figure that out for yourself.
Precisely.
I don't want to psychoanalyze you right here.
No, sure. But I mean, but again, you have to even have that awareness to want to know or even realize where that frustration is coming from. So anyway, I both links for the CNN story and for the NPR story are in the show notes. Another thing he gets into, like, get in your 10,000 steps. I think that's a bullshit metric, and that creates its own stress because then people just get all crazy about, oh, did I get in my 10,000, and all this. And it's almost contradictory because he does a great job in this story of saying, we have to stop stressing over all of these different, like health goals or health metrics of,
well, like he goes running because the cardio activity helps him meet his health goals.
Right.
But the indigenous people that he's studying, they get their 10,000 steps in or whatever just from their daily activities.
Yeah, true. But so like he talks about sleep. This is another interesting thing to bring up because sleep is kind of the hot thing in health circles right now.
Well, sleep is still misunderstood.
Sure. Well, he brings up and says, guess what? He says, we're constantly told that, like our ancient ancestors or, native peoples today, or, like these tribes and whatever else, that they get tons of sleep and they take naps. And he said, guess what? No, they don't. They sleep the same amount of hours that we do. Like their average is between 6 and 7. Which is the average today, for quote unquote, civilized human beings.
Sure.
I put that in quotes, by the way.
There are other cultures that emphasize the nap more than others.
That's true.
And I think that has a lot to do with work as well as diet. And those are both very cultural things.
Yes.
Those are molded by culture.
Yes.
In some places you get a 3-hour lunch break. In some places you only get 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on like when you've eaten and how much time do you have available.
Right. Well, but he brings up that, now there's this narrative of, oh, you got to get 8 hours of sleep or you got to get this. And he says that creates its own stress. That's a problem, and this narrative that we're not getting enough sleep. I mean, and look, we're not, and the quality of the sleep is a whole other conversation to have as well. But I think his point, which again, I feel is kind of contradicted by recommending people get 10,000 steps, is a valid one. In that, don't hold yourself too hard to, these like metrics or these goals that you're supposed to achieve, these achievements you're supposed to get in every day, because that creates a stress that humans just never had,
Yeah, I think more specifically what he's saying is that a lot of these these indigenous people get around 7 hours of sleep, and that's totally normal.
Right.
Sometimes 8 hours is not the average.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's too much. And so don't be hard on yourself if you're one of these people that only sleeps 7 hours a night.
Right.
But I think he also mentions like less than that, and then you get into territory where it is becoming a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. He does briefly mention that, like, look, as you get older, still get in that physical activity, like don't be afraid. Don't kick it up in Florida. Like, don't kick your feet up and say it's done.
No, the only reason that old people, well, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons that old people do become decrepit
or frail.
Yeah, or frail is that they stop using their body and they just get into this mindset where, well, I'm retired. I shouldn't have to do this anymore. Right. And they just accept that that is what happens when you age. But there are many, many, many cases where it's been proven that doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. Now, another thing that he brings up that I also think is really interesting is that the idea that running is bad for your knees.
Yeah, I really like that point too.
Yeah. So I've fallen for this as well. Even though I didn't learn how to run until I joined the Army. And in the Army, they make it a really big point. Like, you need to know how to run scientifically, and the Army admits, like, nobody knew until like the 90s, like what's actually the best way to run, but
so they taught you the form?
The form. Yes.
Like how to foot fall and what muscles in your legs to use at what point in the stride? Right
down to arm position.
Wow.
I mean, and they're really particular about, your hand being that blade that's cutting the air. But again, nobody knew until the fucking 90s,
Well, I wish they disseminated the information a little more, because when I was in middle and high school, I was doing cross country, running 3 to 5 miles every day.
Right.
And nobody taught me the form of running.
Right.
They just, said, go get it.
Well, this is the thing, is that because running, and he brings this point up, now running is essential to people who don't even use horse and buggy, So yeah, you learn how to run the right way or you die. Like
Sure.
that's the name of the game. Now, not uninterestingly, that was the name of the game in the military as well. Like, you learn how to be able to run because you can't count on a Humvee. You can't count on a pickup. You can't count on anything. Like, you might just have to run with an 80 pound sack, and you got to go. So that's why the Army was so, they considered it so important that you knew how to run, and do it right. But I've fallen for this too. And I certainly would drop form. Like when I'd get on a treadmill, you don't think about it. I wouldn't think about it as hard. But I can think back, and I have it, really like, I know how to go about it based on what, the Army had taught me. But his point is that no, running is not bad for your knees. What's bad for your knees is that you don't know how to really run. Like, you don't actually know how to run. You don't know the right way to do it, and no one's teaching you, and it's not considered essential. And that's why you don't figure it out by yourself either. And it's a solid point to bring up.
Oh, definitely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is something that actually helped me to get more into 5 fingers and shoes with very thin soles.
Yes.
There's this idea in the running community called heel striking, which is something that supposedly only people who grow up sitting in desks and chairs that have backs end up doing. And it's where your heel strikes the ground first when you're running. And that's not actually the natural footfall. Supposedly, it's supposed to be the ball of your foot.
Right.
And that generates a very different stance when you're running. And switching to 5 fingers actually helped me to do that.
Yeah.
Not that I do running anymore. My workout routine with you now is just weightlifting, but it was a really impressive shift, and I was able to run much faster actually once I learned how to run properly. But yeah, I think it's fascinating from another perspective too. Like in biology, I was always taught once you damage your cartilage, it doesn't grow back because it's not a tissue that has blood vessels going to it. It just grows and it's done. But there's actually some evidence that it can be regenerated to a minor degree.
Right.
And so basically what he's saying is confirmed by that, which is that putting a small, correct amount of load on your cartilage can actually maintain it.
Yeah. I mean, a couple points. So I feel like I noticed a very similar thing. So basically, when I switched to 5 fingers, now granted, there are famous legal cases against Vibram saying that your claims of how 5 fingers improves your run and everything else are unfounded. And we have research that says the opposite. Of course, that research was funded by Reebok and Nike.
Oh, of course.
Who don't have the patent behind them to make their own 5 fingers. So
and
they got to fuck the other company.
Whole stupid business is about making shoes that have soles that are an inch thick.
Right. Well, which is hilarious that they started trying to make barefoot sole shoes. It's almost like they were well, anyway, that's business and politics and all crap. So what happened with me, and something that got me into buying, like big sole shoes again, was that I started adding in cardio a few years ago, and my knees were killing me. So, but thinking about it, and especially when you talk about the cartilage and everything, I don't think the problem was the 5 fingers. The reason why my knees suck is because I fucking jumped out of airplanes and landed so goddamn harsh that, yeah, my knees are, they're not bad. Like, I don't feel knee pain. It's only when I do extraneous stuff like that. But that's the problem. It's not the shoes. It might not even, like, I'm pretty sure like my run form is actually pretty damn good still. It's that, yeah, my knees are damaged from doing such extreme, stuff like, doing halo drops and whatever else.
Frankly, I think you're lucky that your knees still work well enough for you to run at all.
Sure. Right. I mean, and I've banged them up. I mean, I still have the scars. Of course, you've seen them, from those jumps, but point being is like, that's what's going on. It's not, yeah. Anyway, it's not that running is bad for your knees. It's that jumping out of airplanes is bad for your knees. So there you go. But anyway.
Yeah, and heel striking is bad for your knees too.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, in fact, that's something, because I've been using basically what are like, Converse, Chuck Taylors, All-Stars kind of shoes for weightlifting, because they are a minimalist sole. They're not these fucking, it looks like people are wearing, they're like wearing aircraft carriers on their fucking feet at the gym. And I'm looking at them, what the hell is that? I don't know how they're clown shoes, and they look like clowns when they wear them. It makes no sense to me having all that cushion on your feet. But that really, those shoes, I think, stem from the mistake of thinking that running's bad for your knees, that you need this cushioning, to protect your knees.
Yeah. The whole idea behind the cushioning was to reduce the amount of shock.
Right, impact. Yeah, absolutely.
The shock that travels, the energy wave that travels through your body as all of your weight transfers onto one foot, particularly one point of contact.
Right.
And that shock wave travels from there through your entire body. And especially in joints, like your knee, which is a pretty major joint.
Yes.
That's where the energy reverberates and has to redirect. And honestly, it's not the shock that hurts your knees. It's how the energy is redirected.
Right, which is why it's important to run properly.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you think that these banana boat shoes, these luxury liners that people are wearing on their feet are causing the same problem that the backs on chairs are causing?
Oh, maybe.
To where it's weakening your knees? Actually, it's the exact opposite.
I mean, isn't this what people have argued forever? Is that like luxury makes you weak?
Whoa! Easy there, Klingon. No.
Our race has become too decadent.
Well, and look, it's not like there aren't people in the gym who knew this. In fact, I told you this. This was so for a little while in the gym, and this is good to bring up because if you listen to past fitness episodes that I did, I've made varying recommendations. That's why it's good to do these kinds of episodes every year or two, to give an update, right? Because some new evidence comes along and we gotta update things. I used to wear like these big Under Armour Delta Rock Edition shoes, whatever. Okay. And I saw Mike O'Hearn, who I love Mike O'Hearn. He was giving I think he was in Boston actually. And, basically doing like a seminar with people in a gym in Boston. And he looked at the guy's shoes and he's like, take those things off. And they were those fucking banana boat shoes. He says, you're not going to get, and he didn't really explain it, but like he explained it enough that I was like, wow, that was really something. And that's when I switched to the Converse, which basically have like, a very minimalist sole.
So he just said something that struck you so powerfully but
it was about the shoes. And I think he probably knew very well, that, yeah, this is damaging your knee. Everything I'm saying here, he probably knew, even though he didn't express it in the video, to a high degree, or very detailed. Like it clicked. Something clicked there. And so my point being is that I don't think I just discovered something new here or that we are, or even that this guy did, that there are people out there that if you listen to them, they know what the fuck they're talking about. Even his workout partner, Robbie Robinson, who is talk about a mutant. Holy fuck. This guy's 74. I mean, you want to talk about 6-pack abs on a guy like this guy looks like a Greek god, and he's in his 70s, but he's walking around wearing 5 fingers. Probably knows the same deal.
Well, definitely for weightlifting, there's an advantage to wearing those very minimalist sole shoes.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to doing things like squats or deadlifts.
Yeah.
When the direction that all of the weight is going on your feet is super important because that changes everything about your form.
Yeah.
And you want to have that connection with like, all right, where's my foot going? What muscles are being activated? When you're wearing a really thick soled shoe, it messes with your sense of balance.
Yeah. I agree. I think that it creates a ton of issues. Some of which we're probably just discovering, and like we're, debunking age old ideas like that running is bad for your knees and all this stuff. No, what's bad for your knees are, those fucking destroyers you're wearing on your,
and also jumping out of airplanes is bad for your knees.
Yeah, don't do that. At least not as much as I do. Don't go Army Airborne, folks. So anyway, well, yeah, that conversation went places I didn't expect, but I think that was fantastic. So we've been recording for a while. We are 2 hours and 11 minutes right now.
Holy crap.
Yeah. But we still have other things to get into.
We still have to do the supplements.
Exactly. So let's get into it. Here we are past the 2 hour mark. Let's actually talk about the workout that we do, dietary changes that have been made, and the supplements, the whole breakdown on that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the workout routine, we are basically at like 5 to 6 days a week. Sometimes we'll squeeze a couple body parts in, but we're doing, very body part specific workouts every day. Like technically first day would be arms, biceps and triceps and forearms. That's usually Tuesday, right?
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Monday.
It varies. Yeah.
There are some days where we're behind on our schedule.
Exactly. So we'll get, anyway, these are just days. It really doesn't matter what day, and you can put, breaks in between them. I mean, it's important to bring up quick that I think workouts are incredibly personal, just like everything else really, but these are really personal because everybody has very different goals. And to, like me telling you, I don't think it really matters saying what workouts that we do because every body reacts differently. Like really, there are bodies genetically that can get the same results out of 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps as somebody who does 5 sets, of 8 to 12 reps of the same exercise. It's just genetics. So everybody's kind of different in this. I mean, there's like a range, an average of what you can recommend. There's certainly like a certain style that you can perhaps get best results out of, like, body part split training. But I don't think getting into a lot of the numbers and everything, that really necessarily means anything.
Sure. I mean, suffice it to say, we generally do 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps for most of our exercises.
Right. And we do 3 to 5 exercises depending upon the body part. Legs is where we spend, legs is a easy almost 2-hour workout. Yeah,
that's our biggest day.
Yeah.
At the gym.
Yeah. And there are a lot of movements going on. And that basically, so that's one day and it's all legs, all lower body. And that basically comes from, nobody works out their legs enough. In a perfect world with like a more open schedule, I'd probably do that leg workout twice a week. Because nobody works out their legs enough. And
we actually do. We do add in hamstrings to our warm up on arm day.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So we do have a warm up that goes around 30 minutes or so. You don't have to go that long. And the warm up basically equates to an ab workout. There are things that you can work out almost every day or even every day. And that's, of course, your calves, forearms, and abs. There's an argument that actually you can't work out abs that much. But again, we always take a couple days off. So it's not like those are every day anyway. But that's the general knowledge around this. But basically we do arms one day, legs one day, shoulders another day, back and traps another day, and then chest one day. And that's whatever days that those land on. That's basically it. We've been going to the gym pretty much twice a week.
Yeah, and we try to do it on the weekends because it's quieter then, but
yeah,
it really depends.
Yeah, and at the gym we do back and we do legs at the gym.
Yeah, there's great equipment there that we just don't have.
Yeah, that just would be it wouldn't be really feasible at this time to replicate it, at home. But all the other days of the week, we're doing it at home. All the other body parts, we're doing them at home. And we could probably, and in a pinch, we can do back or legs at home as well.
Yeah,
but it's a very different workout.
There was a period of time when we weren't doing the gym at all, where we did all of our workouts at home.
Right.
And we made it work.
Yeah. Yeah. So we end up working out anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, depending on the body part. But that's what that spread looks like as far as the workout goes. Now, I think what might be a little more interesting to get into, because again, that varies by person, in my opinion, I think and this speaks more to the supplements, and we are going to talk about diet as well. But that is pre-workouts and post-workouts. Now, this is going to be kind of funny, and I think this is something we're going to be figuring out. Because of our schedules, we got into the habit of starting working out around 4 p.m. I think we're going to explore this year, like maybe changing that up. It depends on what our schedules look like later in the year. Because with our diet, and you'll have to wait to listen to this, with our diet, we have a very specific eating window. And that eating window is basically 7 a.m. to like 3 p.m. And we'll only have 2 meals a day. Now, notice, though, the workout is after that. So, and where the benefit, if there is even a benefit, potentially maybe even a negative, a net negative of working out outside of the eating window, that's something I think that we'll be exploring. And I'm just bringing that up here. But the diet overall, I think, is very interesting, and we'll talk about it. It's actually kind of funny too, but so we work out around 4 p.m. Everybody, I think, has a different optimal time for working out. Like 4 p.m., I don't even think is my optimal time. I think my optimal time is around 2 p.m.
Interesting. That's usually the time when people start getting kind of sleepy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's when my well, you're a night hawk, yeah? Night owl?
Yes, definitely.
Me too. Even though we get up I get up at like 6:30, 7 a.m.,
Yeah, I get up around 8.
Yeah, right.
But I do feel more active in the evening.
Yeah, I feel far more on in the evening. Yeah, for whatever reason, I've found just on feel and have won that 2 p.m. is like my prime time. I've rarely had a schedule where like it makes sense for me to work out at that point, but everybody's different on that. Some people do better at night. Some people do better early in the morning. That's varied for everybody. So, but let's talk about pre-workouts and post-workouts. Now, because we do workout later in the day, having caffeine might not be the healthiest option.
Caffeine in general is something that we've been trying to cut out of our lives.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for me because I feel like I have to be on all the time. And like I'll just say it outright. I think I had a horrible coffee addiction, a horrible caffeine addiction.
You were drinking so many cups every day.
It's nuts. I mean, I couldn't oversell it, like how much I was drinking, and so, my schedule hasn't, or go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think I had an equally bad addiction, but my tolerance level was much lower than yours.
Sure.
I would drink the same cup of coffee throughout the day, but if I didn't have it, I would feel terrible and I would be extremely tired. But anyway, that's just to say that everybody has a different tolerance level for caffeine.
Right.
But the addiction can feel just as strong.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my schedule has not changed since when I felt that I needed that much coffee, but I've basically just forced myself to say, you can't keep doing this. Like, like you're just buzzing. Like you can't, I can't keep doing it. So nothing has changed other than I just said, I'm just going to have to fucking deal with it, and not drink all that coffee.
Well, how many days did it take you to get used to not drinking all that coffee?
It took a couple weeks.
Wow.
And I'm still, and this created a problem. We'll talk about it more with diet. Like I'm still, it's not like I have completely cut out caffeine. I still have tea, but I am drinking probably a 20th of the amount of caffeine that I was just even like a month ago.
And how do you feel?
I feel it. I know, I know who I was and how I was with so much caffeine and how I am now. And I definitely, the best phrasing I can use is I do feel like less on. However, I am not jittery. I'm taking like the day kind of slower, but I don't feel bad. I just do feel that like perhaps some of my mental prowess is a little bit less and a little bit. And personally, I like to think that I operate at such a high level, and this is me boasting now. I operate at such a high level that, I'm still operating significantly higher than most people.
Definitely.
So, yeah, right. So I guess I don't have too much to complain about. But
wow, it's so interesting to me that we reacted so differently to it, because I was able to stop drinking coffee pretty much cold turkey.
You're good at that.
And, I felt terrible for maybe 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I say terrible, I mean, I felt tired and lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
But after that period of time, I felt totally normal. And now I actually feel like I have greater clarity of mind. Yes, I don't feel as jittery as, one thing that I think caffeine was really good at for me was like, it increases your stress levels.
Mm-hmm.
And that can motivate you to get more work done.
Yeah.
Because if you're feeling kind of lackadaisical, you're not going to be as focused.
Yeah.
So it's more so about the stress levels. But anyway, I feel like overall it's given my mental clarity a boost to not be on caffeine. And yes, I still drink green tea, but I think tea is in a totally different category than coffee.
Yeah, sure. No, I don't disagree with you. And maybe I'll get to that point of what you're describing, but I definitely don't feel that right now.
Yeah.
So, but it's
been a struggle for you.
Yeah, but this is just necessary. Like, it doesn't matter what the consequences are. This had to happen. So we switched to decaf, but like literally.
And it's delicious, actually.
Yeah, it's actually really great. I mean, because that's a whole other thing that you can get into. Like, coffee even has a placebo effect where it makes you feel like more creative and it gets your brain, going just in the preparation and the smell.
Yeah. And even decaf coffee still has a little bit of caffeine.
Sure. Yes. There's no such thing as like caffeine free. Like there's trace amounts, like it's like 0.004% that allows it to pass by the FDA as being caffeine free, or it's like 0.04%, maybe something like that. It's still very low, but it's still there. Anyway, but let's get into the pre-workouts. But the caffeine conversation was important because we wanted to cut it out of our pre-workouts because pre-workouts, make coffee, look like child's play.
Yeah. Pre-workouts have like 2 cups of coffee worth of caffeine. And it's so hard to actually find pre-workouts that don't contain it.
Yes. Yeah. So you went with one. So we switched off of, the pre-workouts that had a lot of proprietary stuff in them as well as high caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think previously the pre-workout that you were getting me was called Organic Muscle. And I wanted that one because it was made with actual plant matter and it wasn't just like these derived chemicals. Right.
But we recently switched to, it's by Transparent Labs and it's stim free. So no caffeine. Do you want to give me the breakdown on this? Or, I can list off some of the numbers, right? So it's 6 grams of citrulline malate. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. 4 grams of BCAAs. Of course, BCAA is incredibly important for, muscle repair. And then 4 grams of beta alanine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually did a lot of research into this and I read through a bunch of scientific articles because I still have access to all of these.
Yeah, through your university.
Through the university, yeah. Yep. So I came up with a list of 10 top findings that I felt were really important takeaways for the pre-workouts.
Yes.
And after I went through this, I said, so we can either buy these things individually and make our own pre-workout, which is going to be labor intensive, or we can get this one from Transparent Labs, which actually has all of these ingredients at significant levels.
Yeah.
Because a lot of pre-workouts contain a little bit of each one of these important ingredients that actually do have a positive effect on your workout, but not at a level that is significant enough to affect your body. So my top 10 findings was... Do you want me to list them or just the takeaways?
Just the takeaways, I think will work.
Okay. All right. So as far as important ingredients that will actually do something for you in a pre-workout. So ingesting 1.5 grams of taurine has been shown to improve muscular endurance.
So ingesting taurine.
Yeah, 1.5 grams specifically. Okay. Increases endurance. Dietary nitrate is really important, and one source of that is L-citrulline, which naturally comes from watermelons, but you can get it in more concentrated form. You need a dose of 6 to 8 grams per day in order to increase vasodilation, which is kind of what gives you the pump.
Yeah.
It helps open your blood vessels more. So 6 to 8 grams per day of L-citrulline, which promotes the production of nitrates. Creatine is something else that's really important. 3 grams of creatine per day, or somewhere around there. You can go much higher than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go up to 20 grams per day, but that's like a serious front load. And you don't want to do that for a long period of time.
Well, that's an important thing, is that there's front loading and there are different, depending upon your goals. Like, is it for mass gain? What is this for? Gauges your creatine intake. Like there's not just one set number. I mean, everybody should be like the health benefits for creatine are stupendous. Like, I mean, it's amazing. Like everybody, even if you don't really work out, should be taking creatine. The studies, I mean, they're just nonstop. Like in all these supplements, the one that most people don't have any questions about, or that researchers are really, really clear about, is that creatine is fucking awesome. I mean, that's just across the board.
Yeah, it was amazing reading through these studies. There's a lot of conflicting evidence, but there are only a few things that are really clear results.
Yeah, creatine and protein.
Protein's one of those.
yeah, absolutely. Continue.
And these also these other supplements that I'm listing off.
Yeah.
So beta-ene is another important one. It might also go by the name of trimethylglycine, but that taken in 1.25 to 2.5 grams per day can help increase your fatigue level. Well, I guess I should say it could increase your tolerance for fatigue and total volume load. So it'll just help you do more repetitions.
Right.
And then the final ingredient that I found that was really important was beta-alanine. So 4 to 6 grams per day of beta-alanine can help with increasing your endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So these ingredients in those specific dosages are important because they actually have provable effects on your workout.
Right.
So that's what I got from all of my research, and I was like, okay, we need these ingredients in these amounts, because if they're in any lower amounts, they're not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
And so that's why we ended up going with the pre-workout that we're using now.
From Transparent Labs.
Yes.
Which I'll put a link in the show notes for all of this stuff. I want to make it abundantly clear. Sovryn Tech gets no cut of any of this. These are not affiliate links or anything like that. A lot of people do these kinds of episodes because they just want to make the money off of the affiliate links. I will make zero money off of this, and I don't want to. I want it to just be, in my opinion, solid information, at least what works for Ellen and I, and maybe can be tailored for you. And that's it. There's no money made off of these links. They are not affiliate links. I want to make that abundantly clear. Feel free to check the UTM codes yourself. There's no urchins making me money on this. So
I just want to ask, like, how have you felt during your workouts since starting this pre-workout supplement?
Oof. I mean, it's tough because I'm in a case where, so here's part of the problem of the changes, or of what we're describing here, is some of these changes that we've made, we did them all at once.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's very difficult to say what's causing what, where's the causality here? And so this stim-free pre-workout might be working great, but because, I've cut out caffeine significantly, basically, down to a cup of tea a day, and that's it. I don't know, I think it works, but overall my workout feels very different than when I was taking, obviously a pre-workout that would have, anywhere from 200 to 400, milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah. So, agreed.
Right. So I want to say that, I'm getting through the workouts and overall feel good. However, I'm still figuring out the post-workout part, and we need to get into that, but I want to hear how you feel about with the stim-free workout or pre-workout. I feel more sore. I'm not feeling like my body is repairing at the same rate that it did with what I was doing previously, but there could be other elements to that don't have to actually do with the pre-workout or post-workout, because I don't have a post-workout shake now, and that could be a difference. Anyway. So yeah, I don't feel bad, but also I don't know that I feel great, but I don't know if I can blame that on the pre-workout. How do you feel though with the stim-free Transparent Labs pre-workout?
I definitely noticed the first couple times that we worked out that there was no caffeine.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize while we were doing the caffeinated supplements how much that just pushed me through the workout. But now, for the first few times, I really had to push. Like, it felt as though I was struggling.
Mhm.
But the last few days, I think I've adapted to it. It definitely makes my face and my fingers tingle.
Yeah.
With it,
Blood vessels.
yeah,
opening
the
up.
blood vessels opening up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's doing something. I definitely I feel better about it now than I did when I first started. And I think that has a lot to do with the caffeine addiction. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's only been a couple weeks, so we have to give it more time.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'll make a recommendation, and that is that if you like, here's the other problem, and part of the reason that Ellen did so, and this took you days, all this research.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, most of the pre-workouts that you buy are full of shit.
Yes.
I mean, all kinds of horrible shit.
Anything from contaminants to illegal substances to prescription medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's a proprietary blend.
Yep.
Look out for that.
Yeah, if they like put some kind of fancy name on something within the pre-workout, throw it away. Like get that out of your life, because you should, just like we talk about often with food, if you can't read the ingredients, there's a problem. Like, this isn't good for you.
Yeah.
It should be very simple ingredients. We'll talk about that more when we get into some other things. But yeah, so what I would recommend is that go with, like, say, this Transparent Labs pre-workout, even though it's stim free. I don't know if they have one with caffeine in it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Go ahead.
And like if somebody has a better recommendation for something that contains all of those ingredients in the active amounts that we listed, please send us recommendations, because we're always looking to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, but if they don't have it, I mean, I would just say, take this and then do what bodybuilders have been doing for decades. Drink a cup of coffee before the workout, 30 minutes before the workout or whatever. That's all that people used to do. Pre-workouts are a fairly new animal. I mean, they've only been around, 20, maybe 30 years, maybe by now, but back in the pumping iron days, with Arnold and everything, I mean, they just drank coffee beforehand. They got it, what caffeine did for them, but that's all they did. So that's what I would recommend. Use this as your pre-workout, but fine, have the coffee, if you really need that caffeine and you don't have the problem that I have. So
sure, if you don't have the problem that I have where you hate beets, eating beets a couple hours before a workout really does something for you too.
Yeah, beetroot juice, and just using that as our pre-workout was something we were exploring as well.
Yeah, because
that does a great job of opening. Actually, most pre-workouts do have beetroot juice in them, or beetroot in them, because it does open up the blood vessels in an interesting way. So anyway, that was something we were considering as well. Maybe that's something we'll look at in the future. I don't know if we want to experiment more. But now let's talk about the post-workout. Post-workout there's a company that I've really come to love called Naked. That's what they're called. And they make protein, protein powders. They offer creatine. They even have a pre-workout that's probably really good, but it has caffeine in it, so we didn't go with it. They offer a lot of supplements and everything, but they're all here's their edge, where the term Naked comes from, is that it's all simple ingredients.
It's just the pure ingredient.
Yes.
And that's really appealing as far as supplements go, because it's rare to find.
Right. So they have Naked BCAAs, which are flavorless, and it's just what it says.
Yeah. I think the reason we got into this initially was because I was like, why does this creatine taste so chalky and weird? Why are there all these weird other ingredients, like anti-caking agents and whatnot?
Yeah.
I just wanted creatine, straight up, nothing else. And that was the company that we found.
Yeah. So they do great for the BCAAs, and they do great for the creatine. And the the post-workout for you is basically those BCAAs, 1 scoop, and the creatine. And you'd say that's worked out well for you.
Sure.
That's 0 calorie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's okay to drink it outside of our eating window.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's doing a fine job. I mean, I have a lot of muscle mass compared to what I used to have. And, typically I'm sore for max 4 days after a really hard workout.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is like, it's still deeply ingrained within me. And I think, the research bears this out that having protein post workout is really helpful. Now, I've seen some studies that say actually, as long as you have the protein within like a 24-hour or even 48-hour window, you'll get the benefits from having the protein after the workout. So basically having protein in the morning, you're fine. Still, and it is reacting or interacting with the workout you had the day previous. But that's an area that we still have to explore, I think, a bit.
Yeah, is that an area where there's still like the studies aren't clear? Because I've read quite a few studies where they say like it's not really clear whether, taking this before or after the workout provides the most benefit. You just need to get it at some point.
Well, that's one of the, like with creatine, there's debate on that. So I just take it both times, like pre and post. Mm-hmm. With protein, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, the question is like, how big is the anabolic window really? Do you only have 20 minutes or do you have 20 hours, to reap the benefits? That's where there is some debate in that sense, but like protein consumption after the workout at some point seems to be essential,
Sure.
But it's a matter of when. Anyway, that's something we'll be exploring more in the future. So that's our post-workout and pre-workout, situation. That's what we're using, for all of that. I think it'd be good to talk about the diet.
Okay.
And then get into supplements.
Sounds good.
So we were basically what was happening is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ellen, on how this started. We're like, hey, okay, we're working out a lot, but we're not exactly seeing the drop in body fat.
Yeah, I think
we were looking for.
You and I were both kind of independently saying at some point, not that like we're unhappy with our bodies or we feel fat or anything like that.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But you wanted to look more lean, and I was like, yeah, I was kind of expecting more of a lean look too, because
for yourself, yeah.
While I do have more muscle mass now, I still carry the same fat on the same part of my body that I have forever, mm-hmm. and I just would like to get rid of it.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that I want to look anorexic or I need a six-pack or anything, but, mm-hmm. Even just seeing if it's possible, I think would be really amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So personal goals, that's what it's about here.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't happening. And so we're like, and it's not like we eat unhealthy. Holy fuck. I mean,
we eat totally plant-based.
Plant-based, and I mean, the ingredients because you're making a lot of this stuff from scratch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. So, and we're also not like eating a ton. We usually, when we finish any meal, we're generally not, unless it were a cheat day, which are few and far between, we're not generally walking around like, oh God, I feel so full or whatever.
We eat to satiation.
Exactly. So we're doing a lot of the right things. So it's like, the only thing we can do is drop calories, know, and we're typically eating dinner at like somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Yes. Sometimes later if we're at the gym for a long time. Yeah, because it's pretty key to have a regular eating schedule. That's also helps with the metabolism, being able to, metabolize, this food. Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? You, of course, being you, the scientist, started, and this is the area that I am so weak in.
The overthinker.
Yeah. You're like, okay, well, let's figure it out. And you start doing the research, and it's a beautiful fucking thing. Right. And you basically, now I've experimented with many, many diets over the years, paleo, keto, all of them. I was vegan when I was younger. I mean, like I've done all these different things. And I've even experimented with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting in that, now this is a nebulous term because arguably we do intermittent fasting, but the way that most people I've heard talk about intermittent fasting, generally they're talking about there is that window, that eating window, but usually it's later at night. and like you just have one big dinner. This did not work for me. Like I did not, and it's not that like I couldn't do it. I could easily do it. It's that I didn't see like the weight loss from this, nor did I see the performance gains from this. Quite the opposite. So when I slowly started reintegrating another meal in the day, I saw the benefits, like energy and a lot of other things. So and look, one meal a day at night, that might work for some, but this is really a key point here is that, everybody's different and you have to figure out what diet and what perhaps eating window or amount of food works for you, because it's different for everybody. So don't go crazy with any diet plans. Research what works for you. And that includes a lot of N+1 experimentation.
Yeah, pay attention to the results.
Yes, exactly. So, and something that we're experimenting with now, you did your research, you got into it, and you're like, here's what I think we need to do. We're going to have breakfast and lunch and maybe have a snack at 3 p.m., but we're going to have this eating window between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Yeah. So you brought up
no
intermittent
dinner. Go
fasting.
ahead. Yes.
There are 3 different kinds of intermittent fasting that are really, I guess, mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So the one is what you just mentioned, big dinner. There's another schedule where it's eat for a day, then fast for a day.
Take a day off. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really extreme.
I think so.
Yeah. Even by most people's standards, that's really extreme.
Right.
And then there's a third kind, which is called early time restricted feeding. And this is what I was researching into. I felt like there was the most evidence for this actually working. And I found multiple studies that proved on a variety of different metrics that this literally does increase your well-being, multiple levels. Weight loss. Yeah. Well, yes, of course. Weight loss was the, main finding.
Yeah.
But there are other things that I read about this that I was like, wow, we got to start this like today because this is really important. One of the articles that I read is titled "Early Time Restricted Feeding Improves 24-Hour Glucose Levels and Affects Markers of the Circadian Clock, Aging, and Autophagy in Humans." Autophagy? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. But anyway, what this is saying is like it helps you sleep better. You feel less hungry throughout the day, like your subjective experience of hunger goes away. Of course, it takes a while to adjust once you switch over to this diet, but it also supposedly helps your body repair itself better. And so I was reading all of these things. I was blown away. Like, this is too good to be true. Like, you can change your diet just minorly like this and experience anti-aging and weight loss at the same time, and significantly no loss in muscle mass. I thought that was amazing too. Yeah. So anyway, we can eat less, keep our muscle mass, lose fat, and overall be younger and healthier. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And what I found was that the 8-hour eating window, which is like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., is really important for that. It has to be early in the day because when you wake up in the morning, your body it needs glucose. Yes. And throughout the day, as the day gets later, your body becomes much more sensitive to glucose. So if you're eating a big dinner at like 7 o'clock, you could be going to bed and your blood glucose level is still high. And that's not good. It doesn't help your quality of sleep. Your quality of sleep is improved when your blood glucose level is low. Right. And another thing is that the size of the meals, that's important too. So what I read in these articles, it was really great. The saying was, eat breakfast like a king, eat lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Right. So essentially, have a huge breakfast, have a normal size lunch, and a small dinner. So that's where we got this idea, like we're going to eat breakfast and lunch, and we're going to have a snack for dinner. And essentially our snack is a protein bar.
Yes, right. And which are homemade and they're great. They're amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and they're very these aren't, just,
I've got to share my recipe for protein bars.
You should.
I think it's an amazing recipe.
I think it's perfect.
All the other recipes that I found online sucked.
Yeah,
they were dry and crumbly.
No, these are moist and dense, and they're really, really good. So my experience with this has been, after the first week, has been nothing but positive. I sleep longer. Like on average, I was sleeping 6 hours or less. Now I am back to above 7.
Nice.
Generally. I'll say this, but this is important. My shits have been amazing.
Huge.
Yeah, they've been huge. They have been amazing and very regular and more, there's just more of them, which I think is a good thing. And I guess we could talk about some of the challenges at first, and then I'd like to hear your overall experience with it. I will say this, so part of the hard part especially when you first start on, if you're just doing the one meal a day and it's dinner, is that you go through your entire work day starving. You're just constantly dying to get to dinner, and wanting to, you're just wanting to eat, and I think that's a recipe for failure, not only for your diet, but also a recipe for failure for your work. When you're starving and, you got to be creative and on and have to work. I don't think that just doesn't fly.
Thoughts of hunger are so intrusive.
Yeah, it really doesn't work. So I don't really, even just on that level, I don't agree with, with intermittent fasting, eating just one big meal at night. I have no problem getting work done and everything. I feel energized. I feel perfectly energized for the workout, even though it's after the eating window and everything, doing this. The not eating at night, granted at night, usually, well, I don't even know when I relax. I don't know when that is, but bottom line is at night, it's a lot, one of the tricks for intermittent fasting is that when you're not eating, you kind of have to distract yourself to not think about eating. That's how you get by until your body gets used to it. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're not working, when you're playing, rocking a video game or whatever the fuck you do, at night. So I think it makes sense on that level as well. But boy, I'll tell you that the first few days you get what's called, and I didn't even know this was a thing.
Neither did I. I didn't read about this.
No, I looked it up.
We were both surprised.
So basically first day we do it, we're okay. Just out of habit, we're wanting to eat, but we're not really feeling starved or hungry, not having dinner. Second day, feeling all right, get up, have breakfast. So you're doing better. But what starts to happen is you get what's called a fasting headache. This is bad. This is really bad. And I think for me, it was worse because I also cut out caffeine. Because one of the ways you're supposed to get past a fasting headache is that you have caffeine to fight off the headache. But I wasn't having caffeine. Yeah. So there was no solution here. But really for about, 24 to 48 hours or so, there was this horrible headache that you have from this.
It was different than any other experience of a headache that I've had.
Yeah.
So occasionally in my monthly cycle, I will get a migraine at a specific period in the month. Mm-hmm. And I was really nervous because this fasting headache was overlapping with that period. Yeah. So it was kind of leading into a migraine towards the end of the day, but it didn't get there, thankfully. Yeah. But so I'm familiar with feelings of normal headaches and migraines, but this was weird. It was totally different. It's hard to explain what the feeling is, but the quality of it was different. It wasn't so bad at first, but as the day progressed, it got worse. Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just have to ride it out. That's all you can really do.
Yeah. And it didn't last. The first day that we had it, we both said, like, yeah, this is terrible. The
Yeah.
second day, it was kind of there, but it was just a shadow of its former pain level.
Right. Now, we ended up having to visit with some folk. And so, normal people still have dinner. So
Like a week after we started our diet.
Exactly. And so we had dinner with them, and I mean, just out of respect and whatever else, you know what I mean? And
Sure,
just
we're
to
not
be
going to ask
sociable.
them to change their diet because of us.
I'm not going to tell somebody just, hey, I'm visiting, starve, motherfucker. No, that's just not going to happen. So, so we had dinner with them.
We couldn't say no to this food.
Right.
I mean, they made it for us.
Exactly. It was beautiful. Very sweet. So, and we did a couple nights or a couple days where we basically had dinner, and then we went right back in to the eating window. It felt like there was a slight tinge of potentially that fasting headache coming back, but not really. It didn't come back too strong for me.
Yeah, no, I didn't experience it at all.
Yeah.
It felt like a seamless transition back into our normal diet.
Yeah, rebounded very quickly into like not having dinner. Like that wasn't a problem. And so basically I'm bringing this up to suggest that you can have cheat days within this.
Yeah.
And you can get right back into it and your body gets used to it fairly quickly. I mean, so here's the thing. When I was doing intermittent fasting, where it was just one dinner, where it was a dinner at night, that took a couple months before
Wow.
my body was like, okay, this is how it operates. This took a week, not even,
So it's easy to adjust to.
I think it's very easy to adjust to, especially if at night you can just distract yourself, by having fun and doing whatever else. So yeah, I like this a lot and I feel only benefits at this stage from it.
What benefits do you feel?
Well, like I said, I mean, I'm sleeping better. That's for damn sure.
Mhm.
Weight loss has been fantastic.
Really?
I mean, at first, anytime you switch a diet, the weight loss is always dramatic. Like at first, the first month or even the first couple weeks or whatever, and then it tapers. Like it becomes, your body gets used to it and it changes to where you don't get the dramatic loss. But I don't need to lose that much anyway. It's not like, but I mean, I think I've dropped 10 pounds already.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the way that people lose weight on this diet is that, you don't have to change anything else.
Mhm.
But if you just move that eating window of 8 hours earlier in the day, you'll actually oxidize fat while you're sleeping.
Right.
And that's where the weight loss comes in. Weirdly, I feel like I've only lost maybe 5 pounds since we started this.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm experiencing a dramatic weight change or anything. But I do feel like I look skinnier. Like there's less bloating, I guess.
Yes.
Yep.
I feel that too.
I didn't even know that I was bloated before.
Right.
But now I see it and I'm like, wow, it's kind of it looks like a significant change.
Yeah. Well, it's similar when people go on like a low carb diet and then they have a high carb meal, like on a cheat day or something, and how they feel the next day. And they're just like, wow, this is how I used to feel. I didn't even know that that's how bad I felt, until I cut all that shit out. Not to say that low carb is a good idea on the long term, but it's similar, in sensation. That's the only reason I bring it up. Yeah. So, certainly another place that has helped, grocery bill isn't as high.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We're eating one less meal a day. That's like, I guess 33% reduction.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, a bonus. Sure. Not like necessarily the most important one, because if you're going to spend money somewhere, it should be on your health, and
buying good food.
Exactly. So, I mean, I still, there's a part of me that wants to toy with, and I wonder about, okay, what about getting in workouts during the eating window? Is there an advantage there? And we'll explore that, I'm sure, at some point.
Sure. We've got plenty of experiments to do.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, I think this form of intermittent fasting is a winner. Like, I do not have any of the negative effects to date of when I've tried other types of intermittent fasting. So how about you? I mean, how are you feeling about this overall?
I really, I'm enjoying it. I don't feel like it's difficult. The only time that's difficult is, in the evenings, I do get these thoughts about food that just won't leave me alone. But they have been lessening over time.
Yes. Yeah. Like after 10 o'clock, I start to feel really hungry.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, for some people, this could be a good thing because like it makes you want to have a consistent bedtime so you fall asleep before you're hungry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. Like it just makes me want to go to sleep so we can wake up and eat.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which, that's a good thing. Incentive to go to sleep. Great. So yeah, I see it overall as a benefit. Again, I'm not really picturing any negatives. I mean, we have to watch Star Trek during lunch now, but that's okay.
Yeah, that is a change.
Yeah. But that's all right. So anyway, do you want to get into, because we also have a pretty strict and somewhat substantial supplement regimen.
Well, ours are very different, and I like it that way.
Yeah, I think it should be. We're individuals, for one,
Yeah, certainly there's some supplements I think that are on my list that I would like to see you take. I don't know if the inverse is true. Because I know a lot of the stuff that you take has to do with like increasing testosterone.
That's true. Yes.
So anyway, you can start if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick it off. Okay. So, I'll start it off with what we both take, which is a probiotic, and it has prebiotics in it as well. It has a CFU of 5 billion. I'm trying to remember what CFU meant.
Colony forming units.
There it is. Now, I mean, the importance of this is that just like, in the past 15 years, what we've learned about gut health, and you got to take care of your gut flora. I mean, it's just essential. Everybody should be taking probiotics, regardless of what your, activity level is.
Yeah, or eating foods that have probiotics in them.
Yeah, for example, sauerkraut.
Which we just made a batch.
Yeah, we just made a batch. Sauerkraut's a good thing. I mean, look, and this is important when we talk about the supplements, and we're just going to go by the numbers here, because we've already been recording forever. So, but any supplements you can get just from your food, that's the best way to get any nutritional needs,
right, is
through food. You don't want to have to rely on supplements. Okay. But, if you want to add in, okay. Make sure you do your research on the matter, but add in where you feel that there's a need. But yeah, probiotics, we take both of that. That was something, boy, talk about something that changed our shits.
Yeah, that was actually an impressive change.
Yeah.
I'm really loving the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
The consistency of movements, I mean.
Yes.
Not just the shits.
Yeah. They float now. It's great. Yeah.
But I guess if you have a toilet that is easily clogged, this might not be a positive change for you.
Yeah. Good point. Great point. So probiotics are a big deal. There's other ways that this can be taken. There are lots of things like that you could add to shakes, to protein shakes that include probiotics. But
just a quick mention here. If you see things like tea or anything else that needs to be cooked that has probiotics in it, that's a sales tactic. If you cook probiotics, you're cooking the bacteria, and they're not going to be alive when they end up inside of you.
Exactly. Yes.
So you need to take them just raw as they are.
Yeah, and if you're having the sauerkraut, drink the juice. So absolutely. I do have, and I've changed on how many shakes I have in a day and how much protein that I consume. I do have one shake a day right now. Up until we changed this diet, I had 2 a day. I might switch back to that if we change where the workout is, but the protein I now use pea protein. And it's from that same company, Naked, and it's great. Like, pea protein doesn't always taste great, I know, but this tastes good enough to where, like, okay, I can drink it twice a day. But all it has in it's pea protein, raw cacao, and coconut sugar. That's it. Boom. That's it. Those are the only 3 ingredients in this whole fucking thing. And I love that to death. Like, I just look at that and it's only 3 ingredients. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take that.
And I love it too.
Yeah, because I don't blow ass all day anymore. because
frankly, I think you were lactose intolerant and you were still drinking whey protein.
Well, it was casein for a while. Yeah. It was, because there was interesting research and evidence that casein's like the best protein you can have. It's a slow protein, but it's the best protein you can ingest. But man, I was farting like non-stop for the longest time. And it was so bad.
It was really difficult to be around you.
Yeah, no, I know. But like now that I switched to pea protein, done. Like it's just, if it's happening, it's for other reasons.
Yeah, it's not a problem anymore.
Right.
And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So thank you for switching.
Yeah, well, I just love the simplicity of the ingredients list. There is no need to get into all that crap that these companies are selling you. And it's not like the stuff that Naked offers is expensive. It's comparable, in price to, it's not Muscle Farm, but then you got to wonder what they're putting in there that they can sell it so cheap. But next to like your usual mid-grade or closer to high-end proteins, it's in that price range. It's not bad. So, so that's, and in that protein shake, I will also put in the creatine, and I put in bee pollen granules because that's just a superfood. And that's also something you got to be careful with because that'll make you shit. You got to build up a tolerance.
Oh, is bee pollen something that I should consider taking?
Yes, absolutely. Totally.
What's the benefit?
See, this is the thing is that like, I wanted to list all of those out. I'm just going to have to say at this stage, research bee pollen.
Okay.
But like, it's one of those rare superfoods like avocados, where it just does so much. Like you have to list it all out.
Okay.
So yeah. And I think they taste good, damn it. Like I think they have a unique
flavor.
taste,
yeah,
but I love it. You can add them to anything, but I put them in my shake. So
well, maybe I'll start taking it too then.
I've got plenty of it downstairs. Anyway. So that's my shake is the creatine, protein, bee pollen. Boom. That's it. I'm not opposed to adding in like glutamine and things like this, but that's not what I'm doing at this stage. So as far as my supplements, and these I take every morning, except for the first one, which I have to take through separate meals because you're supposed to take 3 pills throughout the day. And so I do that basically 1 at each meal, 1 or 2 at each meal. And that's fish oil, specifically Nature's Bounty, 1,200 milligrams. So omega-3 is important. You can get it if you're into vegan. If you're vegan, you can get it from flaxseed.
Which is what I use.
Yes. But I tried flaxseed for a year. I don't know what I did to my left arm years ago from working out. I don't know what caused it. But my elbow was inflamed to where like it hurt to bend it. I don't know what the fuck I did. And I'm a very careful guy. I looked into it after a while because the pain was not going away. I still kept lifting. I just dealt with the pain, but it was painful, like really fucking painful. And I looked into it and people said, well, like try fish oil if you have these inflamed joints and everything. And I started taking fish oil years ago, got rid of it almost instantly. It was amazing. Flaxseed oil, I bring that up to say that flaxseed oil, this is one of those cases where you got to know your own body and you got to pay attention to yourself and you have to respect that you're an individual and what works for someone may not work for you. Flaxseed, when I started doing flaxseed, that pain returned. So I switched back to fish oil for my omega-3s, pain gone.
Yeah, it's possible that fish oil has a higher omega-3 to omega-6 ratio.
Right. Yeah. So then that's a key thing. So pay attention to that. Your body might not need that. Mine did because of this oddity. So that's why I take fish oil, and not flaxseed, but I did try flaxseed, but that's the only problem that occurred with that.
So you take some sort of oil to get the omega-3s.
Yes.
And those are really helpful in reducing inflammation. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So whatever it is, though, that's why I take fish oil. But flaxseed oil might work just fine for you. And I know that's what you do.
Yeah, it's the ideal level of omega-3s to omega-6.
Right.
But, fish oil, again, might be higher.
Mm-hmm. So now the next two we have, and these are both related, B12, which I do 1,000 milligrams of that. This is also from Nature's Bounty. And I do iron, which is 36 milligrams. And that I get from Now Foods. I do those partly out of the fears raised by people. And even Dr. Greger talked about this, that like when you go to a vegetarian vegan diet, when you go to a more plant-based diet, certain vitamins or, elements that are part of meat eating don't translate, like in that you may not be able to get insufficient quantity from a plant-based diet. And so that's where me taking this comes from, is to make sure that I'm getting that amount. And I'm really only concerned about it more so because I do engage in weight training, and just having that repair and build up. So like, I feel like my body is operating at a higher level. And this is an important thing to bring up as well, is that RDA, recommended daily allowance. RDA is a metric, is a recommendation that was invented during World War II, I think, this is what U.S. soldiers need to consume to not die. That's all RDA is. Okay. It is not the optimal level. It is just how much do you take to not die on the battlefield? Okay. From a lack. Okay. We have a cat having a lot of fun in the studio. So right now, if you can hear the bells jingling, anyway, we haven't given enough attention in the past 3 hours. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that's important to keep in mind with all of this. So I like to play a bit above the RDA. And I'm not the only one that does this. There are other people who recommend it. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, I was just going to say nutritional yeast is fantastic for B vitamins.
Totally right. And we do consume that fairly often. So anyway, that's where B12 and iron come in. Next thing on the list is green tea extract, 400 milligrams. This is also from Now Foods. This is basically for metabolism. This is for fat burning. That's really the whole key behind it. After that, magnesium. This gets into the somewhat age-old idea that none of us consume enough magnesium. So this is another thing where you have to build up a tolerance. Because I do 500 milligrams, but I've heard people that do much higher, like 1500, and keep going. I have not gone beyond 500 in years. So, it's not something that I've experimented with. Next thing is something that I have experimented with a lot. Tribulus terrestris, or people just say tribulus. And this is about testosterone and basically sexual performance health for a male. I do what is basically the maxed out, like where you max out, which is 1500 milligrams. It's from Arazo Nutrition that I get it from. And I think they've had the best, and I've gone through a lot of different companies, but theirs is fantastic. This is one where I have tested, okay, what's it like to not take it? Like to stop, to take it for a long time and then stop for a long time and then get back on it. Let's just say sexual performance. And I'm not a person that necessarily has sexual performance issues at all. But sexual performance increases, like to the point of like amount of hard-ons increase. I'll just say it straight, and I'm also like, I'm already a high testosterone guy. Like I have all the markers for high testosterone. So it's not like I have a testosterone problem. I just want to like take it to the next level, and especially when it comes to sexual performance. And that's really what it's all about. I messed with horny goat weed, ashwagandha, some of these other ones that are all supposed to be like a cocktail that can basically increase, male sexual performance. I don't know what any of those ever did for me, but Tribulus, absolutely. It does raise testosterone levels, at least in what I've experienced. For me, it has worked. So that's a key one for me that there's some of these I could see eliminating. That's not one of them. Next would be zinc, 50 milligrams. This gets into kind of the sex thing as well. I started taking zinc. I mean, now people are taking zinc because of immunity for, like they think around COVID and things like this. I started taking zinc because I had a herbalist tell me, basically, she said, Brian, you're coming so much. Like, you're dropping your immunity. Like, there's no tomorrow. And you got to build that back up. You need to be supplementing zinc. Just flat out. That's what she told me. And I ran with it. And, I think it works. And I get where she's coming from. And I looked into it. It wasn't just like some kind of kooky herbalist stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll keep adding this in because I come a lot.
Yeah, and the amount of zinc that you lose every time that you ejaculate is equivalent to like a quarter cup of almonds or something like that. Exactly.
Yeah, so this is pretty key for me. But if I wasn't the kind, that ejaculated a lot, throughout the day or week or whatever, maybe this wouldn't be part of the program, but that's why it's in there for me. Next is vitamin D, or vitamin D3 specifically, 5,000 IUs. I'm up to 10,000 now. So I take 2 of these, and we could get into the idea that, well, like in certain parts of the northern, as well as, extremes of the southern hemisphere, you literally can't get enough sunlight. You can't get enough vitamin D. And New Hampshire falls in that category. So there's an argument to be made that you almost have to supplement vitamin D.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of foods are fortified with vitamin D.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's my reasoning for supplementing on that. The other is vitamin C. I do supplement on that as well. I do it in pill form, 1,000 milligrams. I know that there are people who say that really you can only, your body can only take in vitamin C well in a liquid form. I haven't gone there yet, but I am doing it this way, and vitamin C for, overall obvious reasons. So maybe I'm overdoing it on that, on the vitamin C, but that's my list. That's my supplements list.
All
and I take that, other than the fish oil, that all gets taken in the morning.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So your philosophy behind the zinc and the vitamin D and vitamin C is just that you get the sense that you're not getting enough.
Yes. Yeah. And that's all around immunity. Absolutely. And I'm already an oddball as far as immunity goes anyway, because of my low body temperature. Like, I never get sick. I basically never get sick. So, this works, not that I want to say that, you don't have to necessarily say correlation causation, but I mean, the research and the reason that I'm taking this stuff, it does appear to, create a pretty potent immunity cocktail for me. But that's what I've got. So I'm dying to hear yours.
Oh, well, don't die. I'll tell you.
It's okay. I'm taking the vitamin C and D. I'll be fine.
Well, funny enough, I feel like my philosophy for my supplement list is different, especially when it comes to vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very strong believer in whole foods and getting all of your nutrition from foods.
Yeah.
And that taking supplements in their pure mineral form is not the ideal way to intake those minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And that they can actually be absorbed much better and much more efficiently when they're taken in their natural food form.
I 100% agree. Yes.
And I go through a lot of trouble in our diet to make sure, or at least to try and focus and make an effort to include all of these nutrients.
Yes.
In our diet. And I haven't done the full analysis yet to find out if that's true or not, but I'm in the process.
Okay.
I bought a software kit for Excel. I actually have a plan to do this whole analysis. This is what I do.
Your spreadsheets are amazing.
I research everything.
You do. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
I want our health to be a real science.
I love it.
We got it down.
Yes.
Anyway, so my supplement list is kind of shorter. It's very simple. I take flaxseed oil, chlorella and spirulina, which are green algae and blue-green algae. And those are whole foods. Those are really amazing. The chlorella, it actually detoxes metals from your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a metal chelator. So it literally attaches to the metal molecules, which is great because, we probably drink lead or whatever in the tap water.
Yeah, even though we filter like crazy,
sure.
Still, yeah.
Well, the filter only lasts so long, and it's less effective the longer we use it.
Yes.
Anyway, so I think chlorella is great. Spirulina, obviously, like the highest level of protein of any food.
Yeah, and I know these are the two that you really would love for me to take as well.
Yeah, because they're superfoods, like you said about the bee pollen. I think they're great for everyone.
I have implemented them in the past, and usually I did it with a powder that, because that's the funny thing with like spirulina, right? Is that usually it's like you have to take like 8 pills or something. They're small, but...
Yeah, typically. I mean, the last set that I had, they were larger pills, and you only had to take, I think, 2 or 3.
Okay.
But the ones that we have now, they're tiny tablets, and you do have to take 6 at a time.
Right.
Which isn't so bad. Like, I can swallow all of those at the same time because they're so small.
Yeah. So, couple quick things. My first question is that do you see any issue with taking it in powder form and adding it to a shake?
No, I mean, besides the flavor, I don't think there's an issue.
Yeah,
I do think that they taste weird.
Yeah, no, I mean, that might have been why I stopped, was that like, it was really messing with the taste.
Yeah.
But at this stage with what I'm drinking, I'm not that worried about it. And I'd probably add it back in. So funny thing about me, I can't swallow pills. I have to eat something to like trick my mind. And it's totally a mental thing. I have to trick my mind because I could, well, this will sound funny, but I'll say it. I mean, I could swallow a hot dog whole, like.
Whoa.
No, really. I mean, I could, boom, no problem.
Well, I guess that's true. I've seen the way you eat.
Yeah. It's totally a mental thing why I can't swallow pills. It's the weirdest fucking thing. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to, but I just can't. So I take all those pills that I listed off. I take that with one of your protein bars. So that's why I ask if I can get it in powder form, because that just makes it easier for me. But anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think there's a negative effect to taking it in powder form. I think you just, need to weigh it or however you want to quantify it. Just make sure you're taking the right amount. So anyway, the only other 2 things that I take are the probiotic, which you already talked about.
Yes.
And holy basil.
Holy basil.
Yeah, which that is one that I added in when I was feeling extremely stressed about homework and projects that I was working on for my degree. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to keep taking it just because it really is so great at being not just anti-stress, but also like anti-inflammation. Right. And when I started looking into it, like there's actually a lot of benefits to taking it. So, yeah, and it's a whole food still, even in its powdered form. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I feel like there's no reason for me to cut it out.
Yeah. How do you feel about adding in like mushrooms? Like, what is it? Like lion's mane mushrooms and some, have you looked into these at all? This might be the next bit of research. I haven't. I used to like, you can take, it's a powder and it has like 7 different types of mushrooms in it.
Well, I do think that mushrooms offer a really unique set of nutrients. Mm-hmm. Mushrooms even have their own form of vitamin D. Right. Which is why it's so important, like for vegans or vegetarians to eat a lot of mushrooms.
Which we do.
Yeah. So anyway, I do think that eating mushrooms would have a benefit. I guess I'm just not familiar with this mixture that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think this is something we're going to look into next. Okay.
This is great. We're learning from each other.
Yeah. Well, see, okay. So did you have more on your list or are you?
That's all.
Okay. Because I want to kind of close this out with the really important part of improving your health overall, mind, heart, body, the whole thing. And that is having a partner. It doesn't have to be a lover. Like, I mean, that's great if it is, but having a partner, having somebody who, because like this is so much information, and being able to, have a 2-prong attack on, okay, I'll figure out what's the optimal physical movements, for workouts that we can do. And then the other person, I'll figure out the diet, or I'll figure out the supplements or whatever. I mean,
we specialize in different areas.
Exactly. The team effort and the fact that we can inspire each other. Because there's days where, you don't feel like working out. I don't feel like working out.
Yeah.
And if we both don't feel like working out, fine, we don't work out. But at least we are there for each other, in our sedentary.
Sure. Well, we keep each other accountable.
Exactly.
And, even on days where we both feel like we just don't want to do it, we're empathetic with each other.
Yes. But I mean, we're sharing stories with each other right and left. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? They have to do with health and things that we can integrate. It's so helpful on countless levels to have someone else to be on the journey with you, but you got to respect that it might not be the same exact journey. It's all about optimizing perhaps yourself or, whatever that, getting healthier, losing weight, whatever the goal is. Okay. For yourself. But the fact that you can be there for each other in figuring all of that out it's so precious and essential, to do it. And even when it comes to psychological stuff, I think that that's really important. I would have never read The Happiness Hypothesis if you didn't plow through it and were so inspired you read it again. And I'm like, well, I have to read it now. Shit. She read it twice. So, it's gotta be good. Yeah. I mean, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that having a partner to help distribute the knowledge between you two is incredibly helpful because you can cover twice the amount of ground with the same amount of energy. And also, I think there's really something important to what you're saying about having a partner in general, not necessarily romantic, but it goes back to something that was in the happiness hypothesis, which is this importance of the feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
Even if it is just to another person or another 2 or 3 people, just feeling that you belong in a group, that you contribute something useful, and that in itself has incredible health effects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is by far one of the easiest ways to make yourself happier.
Yeah. To increase well-being.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I agree. And it's fun. Like when you have the right attitude about it, you're basically experimenting, you're both experimenting with yourselves and kind of with each other in a way.
Yeah. If
you want to think about it that way. And that just becomes lots of fun, in my opinion. I love that.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love experimenting on you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's great too. Same. And, it's also nice when you're going, to the gym and you can kind of, you can get kind of judgy and gossipy on everybody too with someone,
That's something that you can only do if you're part of the in-group. Though.
Yeah. And I say that in jest, because again, everybody has different goals. Everybody has different desires. And
we might say judgy, gossipy things sometimes, but we don't actually mean it.
No, we don't mean shit.
It's just to make ourselves feel better in the moment.
Yeah, the importance, that's in the happiness hypothesis.
Self-glorification.
Yeah, but it's in the happiness hypothesis. He talks about the importance of gossip.
Oh, yeah, it's totally underrated.
It's underrated. It's important. And I mean, like it's a way, it's how we used to communicate over long distances. And with larger groups, before we had social media and other things, anyway, that gets into a whole other subject. Read the book, folks. Bottom line.
Yeah.
So, but his point is gossip is actually a good thing. Like it's not a bad thing.
Everyone engages in it.
Right.
Even though people view it negatively, everyone does it, and it makes them feel more connected to the person that they're gossiping with. Yeah,
exactly. So I love that.
Yeah.
But,
and you can also get useful information that way, but that's kind of like, who cares about that?
Yeah. Well, so anyway, find a partner. And I know that's tough. And that's the hardest part of this whole thing probably is finding somebody who can really go on this journey with you. But it's not necessary, but also paradoxically, the way to find that partner might be by starting on going on this journey on your own, because the other people that want to go on this journey too will gravitate,
Yes.
towards you. And
They see you taking it seriously, and they'll want to take part in the journey with you naturally.
yeah, especially as they see you improve, maybe they want a piece of that. And then you can go on that journey together when they want a piece of it. So that's so important. But anyway, this is really, wow. I think this is such a complete package of information. We covered mental health, heart health, physical health, a lot of debunking in this, supplements, pre-workouts, post-workouts, protein shakes, what are the workouts? How do you eat? There's so much to take away from this, to think about anyway. Again, you have to, for me, the biggest failing in science is that and I know I've said this in other Sovryn Techs, there really is no human species, in my opinion. And Ellen might bristle at this, and that's okay.
We've had this conversation in the past.
Yeah. We're all individuals. We're all very much our own species, each individual, and science tries to apply very broad swaths far too often. I'm not saying there aren't universals like we talked about. There are at points. Okay. But those are, I think, few and far between. And we don't spend enough time really concentrating on, shall I say, the research and science of the individual. And there's a lot behind that, and that's a huge conversation. But my point being is that the biggest thing, find a partner, but understand that even within that partnership, you're each individuals, and you're going to have to do things differently, or some things are going to be done differently. And that's not that one is lesser or greater. It's different. And really keep that in mind. I think this episode, I'm really pleased with what we put together here. And I look forward to hearing people's feedback on it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts you want to end off with, Ellen? Anything you want to get out there?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I have anything else to say. I feel like we really covered the whole picture. 3.5 hours. Yeah. What else is there? This might have to be a two-parter.
It could be interesting. I've never released anything like that, but So, but regardless, at the very least, if I do say so myself, I think we improved upon the silence.
Yes.
So,
and if you listen to the entire picture, everything that we've said today, maybe you'll be able to train your elephant so that you can eat more healthy, feel less stress, and overall just improve your well-being, your health of your mind, heart, body. That's really the goal.
There it is. So we'll wrap this one up. Ellen, of course, an absolute pleasure. And I appreciate your expertise, both in life and behind the mic.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So we'll wrap this one up, and more Sovryn Tech to come. We'll see all of you on the other side.